History's Maddest
Bastards.
Podcast.
Echo of a podcast intro.
Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to History's Maddest Bastards. We are back. We've been away for far too long, but the tankard of mustard is back on the table.
The mustard is flowing. Actually, that's not true. It's still got the plastic wrap on.
Yeah, but the microphone's on top of the tankard of mustard, which is the important thing.
Bloody post-COVID special. It's the first one where we sat around the same table.
Post-COVID.
So we've not really done a proper Maddest Bastards podcast since the world ended.
It's been 2 years.
We did a bit of mustard movie nights to keep us entertained for a while, but that fell off after a while as well.
They were all shit.
They were okay.
It was good, but it just wasn't quite the same, was it?
No. The Conan one was quite good, I thought.
I used to eat cabanos alone and then get drunk and feel a bit poorly to recapture the feeling.
When I was young, I used to sit in the cupboard under the stairs and eat that sweaty meat from my bare hands.
Anyway.
We have fed and watered ourselves the bread and the meat and the questionable Polish beer and everything has been
That's
guzzled.
true. And when it comes to the watering, whereas myself and Simon are both drinking beer, Matt has got beer and coffee on the go at the same time.
It's tea. I've got a nice cup of Earl
tea,
Grey.
is it? Okay.
You uncultured swine.
I'm pretty sure that's out of date, though.
I don't care. It's tea.
Yeah, well, I'm drinking weird honey beer that I was told in the shop was nice, and it's just...
No, I told you after one sip that stuff's terrible.
Well, to me that was an endorsement, and it's turned out to be horrible.
Are you telling me that back in the days of yore, when tea was being brought over to Europe from the East, on the back of some asthmatic donkey for fucking years on end, on the trade routes, they wouldn't be drier than this probably was when it was sat in your cupboard?
Yeah, but they were all poorly back then all the time.
That was a hell of a sentence there, Matt.
They all died of dysentery, but it was probably helped by the fact that they boiled tea.
You claimed to have dysentery once, didn't you?
People told me I had dysentery. It was actually gastroenteritis.
Was that the weekend where you just stayed in the Portaloo and went,
That was the weekend that led up to a total of 8 days of excruciating defecation.
Wasn't that when you were sent home in a bin bag?
Good name for a band.
No.
I'm sorry, what? Sent home in a bin bag?
Sounds like a weird mafia threat. Send you home in a bin bag!
I walked to a pair of St. John's ambulance paramedics who were on standby.
I bet they were useful.
I said, have you got anything for chronic diarrhea? And they thought I was joking and just left me alone.
He's probably shitting himself, my lords.
Filling his hose returns. That's a different story entirely. Yeah, I'll do it again.
Means.
Okay.
More like it.
Anyway,
High five.
Okay, so we need to not ramble on for 10 minutes like we usually do.
What
I think
have we
3
been
minutes
doing in that time? I've basically, I used to be based in the Midlands, but I moved down to...
No one cares about
They
that.
do when I tell you what I've been doing. I, on a whim, I got asked to attend a college course in... essentially vineyard management and that sort of thing, and then ran off to the south to make English sparkling wine.
I think the more significant part is that at the start of COVID, you lost your mind. You built a murder dungeon.
Oh, that as well. I spent
that as well.
Well, people sniff at my successes, but I actually spent 5 months working professionally as a voice actor.
It worked very well, but I remember you showed me a cupboard under the stairs, and it did look like when they find a serial killer.
I have only just in the last couple of weeks gone back to the shanty dungeon and ripped the foam off the walls, which is a bit of a strange phrase in itself.
It is somewhere like you'd be like putting an advert like, lonely old man needs cleaning lady. Must be young and have weak bones.
And then they find a load of, like a collection of shoes that he's taken from women that he's killed or something.
Yeah.
No, I did not kill those women, but I might have the shoes.
You didn't kill them, you just kept the bodies. It's just not the same thing.
Anyway, so what have you been doing, Simon?
Oh, yeah. This week's theme is excess.
Okay.
Oh, okay, we made a jump. That's fine.
Well, I thought you'd decide the theme was excess.
I think I'm the only one who did anything interestingly with
I think
my
you're
lockdown
really.
time. The rest of it just spent all time locked up indoors.
Well, the table that we're sat around now, I sat in and I did a job from home that was terrible. And on numerous occasions, I got caught by the bin men shouting at my laptop. And on one occasion, I was shouting, "You fucking moron, you cunt, you cunt." And then the bin men all went, "Someone stop it!"
Do you have RuPaul as your bin person?
I don't believe so, but I think he's
Was he in the bin? Did he fall in a fucking bin?
I don't think the wheels have fallen off Drag Race just yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, so I think that concludes our intro. So
Wasted time.
Yes, our loyal audience who's been very patient, and that's assuming anyone is listening to
All
this.
2 of you.
We might get 0 views for the next 2 years, who knows? But to all of you, we can confirm that we have come back to present to you 2 more candidates for Maddest Bastard.
Let the joy flow forth and onwards.
And therefore, Simon, who have you got to present for us today?
I've got someone who, well, you might already know him. He played a character in English folklore who in Nottingham we're very fond of.
Really? I'm not...
Really? He played Friar Tuck. That's amazing.
Can you guess who I'll cover up his name. Can you guess who he is?
Is it Robin Hood?
Yeah, but can you guess who played him?
Quite a few people have played Robin Hood. We've got Russell Crowe. He's
well, no, he
didn't.
His version of Robin Hood is just going, you build it from the ground up.
Kevin
Fighting around
Costner.
the world.
I'm Russell Crowe.
We've got Errol Flynn.
That's him. There we go.
We're doing Errol Flynn.
I genuinely worried that you'd be too young to know who Errol Flynn was.
Oh, no. I'm aware of Errol Flynn. I actually quite like that Robin Hood film.
You well after this?
Was it from the 60s, that one? That was a really old one.
1938.
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah, it was
okay.
Technicolor. They spent some money on it.
I love the old Technicolor films.
Yeah.
Yes,
Things were
because
just
I was
daubed
confused
with
that it was in colour when I
paint.
saw it. I remember this now,
It was very expensive and they made it. But yeah, he was. That's exactly what it sounded like. And now, audience, Robin Hood with some experimental jazz.
Hey, man.
All right, come on then. Tell us about Errol
Right,
Flynn.
anyway, it's the bloody Tasmanian devil himself, Errol Flynn.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, they called him the Tasmanian devil because Errol Leslie Thomas Flynn was born in Tasmania in 1909.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he hid it in later life.
Was he certainly prone to excess?
Yes. Errol's father was a distinguished biologist. Apparently, allegedly, we don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
His
We
parents,
just don't know.
well, his early life's a bit of a mess.
His early wife is a bit of a mess.
Well, that too. But apparently his parents often went travelling together for his dad's work, leaving Errol behind, allegedly with no money, but that might be bollocks. His dad in particular went on long trips looking for animal bones.
What?
So
Where was he looking for these bones?
all over the world.
In the ground?
So it's just like, well, Errol...
Fossilised bones?
Well, as a child, apparently, I don't know. Errol really looked up to his dad, but he disappeared for a year.
I've dated women like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then
they look for bones.
Yeah,
they
they
talk
don't-
about. They're
Yeah.
not the ones that you accuse me of beating to death with shoes, are they?
You're not really selling yourself there, Stefan. Like, yeah, I date women who are desperate for fossilised bones they've dug out of a desert.
I really like old bones.
No, some of them just find the dead animal and then they'll leave them to just decompose so they can have the bones.
To offer to the great
yeah.
hog.
These are all
god
very
of the
pleasant
apocalypse.
ladies, of course.
But yeah, continuing. Well, poor Errol, he had similar problems. It gave him a lot of daddy issues, basically.
He's getting
Because
into Crowley territory.
he had problems with daddy. Because
I won't say anything about that one regarding
Yeah,
that.
we won't. Well, Crowley will turn up in this. But his...
Really?
Well, there'll be reference. But yeah, his dad would disappear for like a year and then come back like, Errol, my boy! And then it just upset him, basically.
That's the kind of dad I want to be one day.
Well, in his absence, his mother didn't know how to deal with him, so she just beat him a lot.
Oh,
And
okay.
allegedly had a lot of affairs. And this may have helped to influence his negative view of women, because later on in
Really?
life,
It'll do that.
surprisingly,
Yeah.
Yeah, funnily enough.
I do not condone that sort of thing.
well, she once tried to discipline him by locking him in a room for 2 days. Young Errol resolved...
did he put foam on the walls and then make a recording
Start
studio?
shouting into a metal baked bean tin on a stick.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Oh, poor boy.
You utter bug.
Yeah, after that, he resolved to never be cooped up again. He said, he'd never be a prisoner. He'd, bust out of there. Young Errol was a bit of a tearaway because, Daddy was away. And he tried to run away at the age of 7. His mum found him down the road attempting to find work at a nearby dairy farm. As you do.
As a cow?
Yeah, well, no, it's just, he said, basically this 7-year-old boy turned up at their farm and he's like, I want to work for you. And went, all right, boy.
He makes
And then they
cheese like no one I've ever seen. Actually,
He-
no, that's not a dairy farm thing. It's milk. The cheese is done
I assume it comes out of a cow.
Cheesery.
I don't know how others work.
I went to the Wensleydale cheese making place once.
I
It's
like
very
how at
nice.
the beginning of this, Matt said, like, we need to make these shorter. Let's just stick to the facts. Let's
It's
just
great.
steam through it. Now he's like, I went to the Wensleydale factory once.
The Americans came over. It was brilliant. Very nice.
Very nice. Carry on, son.
He constantly stole from his classmates, leading him to being expelled from every single school that he attended.
Every single school.
Every single school. In particular, he was expelled from the prestigious Sydney Church of England Grammar School for theft. Sorry, that was my phone. I know. But he later claimed that this was because he had a sexual encounter with the school's laundress.
What? In what, like a positive encounter? Or
I don't know. I assume.
What is going on?
I'll turn my phone
Who
on.
is?
I'm sorry!
Get rid
I've
of
let
this.
you down!
This is utter.
My 2 years off and I've let you down!
Ah, I always said this day would come. Mother was right about you when I was born.
I like that we had discussions before this where we were saying, let's not derail it, let's not scream about nothing. And we're 5 minutes in going, ah!
Ah! The great horned one must be appeased.
So you
Stop
were saying
dinging
he,
the
bell.
he was expelled from this prestigious school?
All of his schools, every single one, including a fancy boy boarding school in England, and they sent him back to Tasmania.
Fair enough. Does it say what he actually did, or was he just...
Stealing and fighting,
Oh,
but
okay.
he claimed later on in life that he was expelled because the school's laundry woman, he done a sex with her.
Okay.
Okay,
In a
fair
positive sense, though.
Well, we don't know.
Did they
Do you know
have
how old he
vibrating
was,
washing machines in those days?
Well, it just broken down, so she was like, I need a boy now. I don't know.
Oh, God.
This
Washboard
I'm sorry,
house.
Simon, I shouldn't read your notes, but I've just seen the title of your next section.
Yeah, the next section is called Pirate Man.
Pirate Man!
Well, Flynn, after he was expelled from all his schools, he managed to get hired by a Sydney shipping company as a junior clerk, but he was soon sacked. Can you guess why he was sacked?
Was this something involving pirates?
Is it
No.
something to do with having sex with a senior clerk?
No, he stole petty cash.
Oh, okay.
What?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a
Well, that's a
letdown.
bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Flynn
Do
then,
better.
well, after this, Flynn decided that the only sensible course of action would be to take the high seas.
It's the only course of action.
Anything to do. At the age of 18, he moved to Papua New Guinea to seek his fortune. What's funny about that?
It's oddly
Oddly
reminds me
specific.
of my guy that I've got.
Well, he wanted to seek his fortune as a plantation owner and as a gold prospector.
What?
So he was it's weird. It's funny though because he was one of the most suave men alive, and when you hear gold prospector, you always imagine a toothless old man go,
You imagine Stinky Pete from Toy Story.
"Oh, there's gold in them there hills."
I remember fighting Grandpa. You're
Something about this town being
fire up
taken
this
over
gold.
by... Yeah.
I say there's gold in the hills. He says there isn't gold in the hills. When a fire
I said there's gold in those hills, Johnny, and I said don't go there, Johnny, don't go to the gold hills. That's where the pavement are. Yeah, that's a sample of what gold.
me dig up the gold.
This is what gold prospectors talk like, but Errol Flynn was more, hello, I'm Errol Flynn.
That's before you get there.
Can I do a sex on you? That's kind of what he
You
sounded
dig
like.
up one bar of gold. You know, you don't dig up bars of gold, do you?
I don't know where they
No,
came
you
from.
smelt them. You dig up the gold and then
Oh,
you pound
wow.
the gold out and then you smelt them, and that's how you get your bar of gold.
Well, there's
Are
trouble.
you a gold digger, Stefan?
No, but I've known a few.
I want to be
And
a gold
thankfully
digger.
they weren't interested in me because I don't have any money.
Oh, I wish I was a gold digger. It'd be great. The trouble with all this, though, and all the gold, was he became involved in an illicit form of slavery. This is bad, known as blackbirding,
Okay.
where
What?
he would basically go into the jungle and he'd recruit native people to work in Australia or work in the Australian gold mines. The trouble with that, though, is technically it was consensual, but most likely Errol Flynn was just going around with a net.
It's
Just
like exploitation.
yeah, he was just capturing people and then not paying them,
Coercion.
which was a bit bad.
Okay, I'm just making notes about each person, so I'm just going to write
Slavery.
Slavery question mark?
Oh,
question
Are
mark.
we're
And a
gonna
little shrugging.
with little quotation marks either side. There we go.
we're going to have
Carry
to
on.
put in a little disclaimer that slavery bad, kids.
Yeah.
Don't do
I
it.
think this is definitely
Okay.
verging into like those were the days
I think-
territory.
Yeah, if
Fucking
like...
We haven't got the red coat uniforms on. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Even then, it depends what period.
Well,
Well,
pith
I
helmets
was lent
alone.
one and I damaged it, which I'm quite sad about. I still regret it. But yeah, if it was history's baddest bastards, he'd have won by now because he was literally a slaver. He also settled into the lifestyle of a colonial gentleman.
Oh,
So yeah,
no.
there's photos of him at the time where he would wear a pith helmet and a white suit.
Oh.
And
No.
it's mental because this was like 1930.
Was he born aloft on a litter as he was
I
wafted
bet he
with
probably-
giant palm
I
leaves?
think he
must
might
have
be.
been. Surely
Well,
he was.
on
Gin
one of
and
the
tonic to keep the
photos,
plague away. No,
there-
malaria.
there is a local person holding like a drink for him on a tray, and he's like with his hands on his hips with his pith helmet on, like Big Les, going,
That is one of the
God
hilarious.
save the king.
It's one of the hilarious things about the British abroad, where they
That's-
don't
well, he was Australian.
rough it. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise. It was the Church of England thing that threw me off. But it's the idea that I need quinine to deal with my malaria because of these bugs. Put some gin in it, would you? I always thought he was English. I guess because he played an English folk hero in a film.
Oh, well, we'll get into that later.
He had mastered the English accent, to be fair.
He hid it very quickly because being Australian then wasn't glamorous.
Street.
On one visit to New Guinea, because he went between New Guinea and Australia because he was transporting people he kidnapped.
Well, he was on the high seas, right?
On the high seas of crime. Flynn claimed to have been ambushed by the natives and he shot one of them. And we don't know what happened, but it sounds a bit like when Aleister Crowley went to India and shot a man and went, "That man tried to rob me."
It sounds a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not one of those.
Well, also in his autobiography, he doesn't sound very sorry about it. He just wrote, "Oh, got him right in the neck." So, yeah.
Hit him bullseye, dead on, mate.
Well done.
Threw him under a bus just to make sure.
Well, he claimed this was self-defence and he was acquitted in court, but Flynn had to leave and return to Australia. And he also took a nasty case of gonorrhea back with him, which is nice.
I'm just going to make a note of that as well.
Gonorrhea.
Not just mild gonorrhea.
This bit's quite grim. He struggled to find work after being a fancy man abroad. And he went sort of down in the world a bit. He got a job on a sheep ranch in the Australian outback. And this is mental. I don't know why they did this. But his job was to shove his face into a sheep's arse. And then he'd bite their bollocks off.
No way.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, then he had
the weird... Oh.
It's insane. Like, they had knife technology in the 1930s.
I've got a friend who's got a girlfriend whose dad owns a sheep farm.
Does he bite your bollocks off?
No, but she did claim that when one was being born and it was either going to kill the host, meaning its mother, or...
The host.
I don't know, they could either save the lamb or the mother.
Did they bite it out?
He knocked a nail into its head.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And then cut it up to bits and then pulled it out.
Oh, that's sad. But yeah, he
Sheep
did.
Farm.
So I'm sorry, he used to shove his face into a sheep's arse.
And a sheep's arse is always a mess.
And he'd bite their balls off. So what, he was just neutering them, basically?
Yeah, and then he'd spit them into a bucket and then he'd hand them into the ranch manager and be like, "I've done all these balls today."
I just feel that the biting isn't necessary.
No, because I'm pretty sure they do it with a big elastic band.
Yeah. I've
seen
seen it done on old... Oh no, Animal Hospital. That was back in the good old days. Sordid and criminalistic.
I found a weird video with a woman wearing plastic, and she was threatening.
Well, we've all found those in the past, right?
She was threatening the camera with
women like this.
She was threatening the camera with a big elastic band, saying, "I'm going to cut your balls off." I thought, this sounds terrible.
Slowly over a period.
I'm not
weeks.
giving you any of my money.
It's when she
You're not taking my financial details.
It's when she starts goose stepping around the room and gets the Flammenwerfer out.
Then she's a keeper.
That's a different situation.
Not really.
Not people I know.
Anyway, back to Bollock Biting Ranch.
Yeah.
He soon lost his... This is the mad thing. His job was, if you've ever seen... I mean, I don't know if you make a habit of looking at sheep's arses.
Not really.
I haven't really.
I normally look at their heads.
Oh, well, they're a right mess. They're covered in shite. And
so their heads.
All day he would have his face in there. And somehow he was charming enough to seduce his boss's daughter.
I thought you were going to say to seduce the sheep to let him do
Well, maybe he did. Maybe like, "Hello, I'm Errol Flynn. Come over here. I'll bite your bollocks off." They were like, "He's nice."
It's all relative. He must have been the best of a bad bunch.
I remember a while ago, some of the ladies at work, like, we're talking boomer age ladies.
Will they try and bite your bollocks?
No, that hasn't happened, thankfully. But those middle-aged women, if you wear a kilt, you want to watch out for them because they will reach under there, and that's the thing.
God,
However, these ladies in particular, I remember when one of them was talking about Errol Flynn. They all said that he was supposed to have had a massive penis.
Ah, well, there's a section later on.
There's a section on the
called
penis.
"Did he have a big willy?" And
Okay,
I've done some extensive research.
Does he do all?
Very good, very good. Please continue.
But yeah, speaking of that, I learned
Oliver Reed.
Yeah, during my time doing bar work, I learned the hard way that most women on hen night are fine. They're just like, "Woo!" But it's always when they bring the nan. The nan has the vice-like bollock grip. And you can't shove a nan off you when you're collecting glasses, and she's like, "Huh."
Well, they're well practiced, aren't they?
You should report that if they're trying to neuter you by breaking off your balls.
The trouble is, it's like their first night out in about 20 years, and they're like, "I've had a heat, so I'm going to grab this boy's bollocks." So, yeah, "Sure up, Sandra.
Nan's having one
It's your fault your granddad's dead." Anyway.
She's having one of her funny turns. She's on the Baileys.
Anyway, somehow Flynn managed to seduce his boss's daughter, and he was chased across the outback with a shotgun. This is a man who always fell on his feet, though. After losing that job, he was cast in his first film, called In the Wake of the Bounty. Flynn told the director that he was descended from the Bounty mutineers. There's no evidence of this.
The what, sorry?
Well, no, it wasn't like the Coconut Bar. It was actually a boat full of mutineers.
I never thought of the Coconut Bar until you just said that now.
Actually, as a child when I heard about it, I thought that it was like a load of sailors, and they wanted more bounties, and they were told no, one per day.
Okay, I was thinking of the mutiny on the Bounty, or as
floating on a giant.
As Markham and Weiss spelt it, the Monty on the Bonty.
Right then, we've edited a bit out because Matt kept talking about bounties.
I like bounties.
Around this,
I'll suck the chocolate off and just chew slowly on the desiccated coconut.
How could you? Around this time, Flynn attempted to worm his way into Sydney's high society. He became engaged. What's funny about that?
Picturing someone trying to
worm his way in
posh parties in a dinner jacket, but moving like a worm. I should worm my way towards your house.
Or just Errol Flynn just rolling around on the floor like, "Hello, are you the Duchess?"
Just bringing a sheep with him as a date.
You invited Worm Guy again. He keeps moving in a
Well, they call the groundskeeper and he chops in with half of them. There's two Errol Flynns. Hello.
You can't hold his champagne because he's always wriggling too much.
Around this time, I've already said that. He was engaged, but because he wanted the money, he later seduced an older married woman, so he had a bit of a sugar mummy, whatever you call them.
Was a mistress.
But then he stole her jewels. So if you can add international jewel thief to the list.
Family jewels.
I find it quite interesting that he managed to do the same thing to a woman that he did to male sheep, in that he stole the jewels.
Stole the charm. Every day you stray close to becoming a
his
nerd.
bite was worse than his bark.
On the run from the law, he fled the country. This is
Tasmania.
Where did he go then, Simon?
This it went mental. This section is called Herman Urban. During his travels, because he was escaping the Australian police, Flynn befriended an eccentric Austrian doctor
Aren't they all?
called Herman Urban.
I've never met a normal Austrian doctor.
Well, Flynn was really susceptible to this. He became something of a surrogate father figure for Errol, and he taught him all this weird stuff.
Did he have a secret serum that made him superhuman if he was injected with it and a vibranium shield?
I mean, I've done a bit of research and I don't believe so, but we're not sure. Herman taught him all this wacky stuff. So they travelled around Asia together, frequenting brothels and opium dens, and allegedly cheating in cockfights in the Philippines for money.
How do you cheat?
I assume you hurt the other chicken.
You just pin the chicken down and inject it with PCP and Coke.
It's like the end of Gladiator. You stab one of the birds and give it a little kiss on the cheek, like, "Brother, good luck in the arena, brother." The pair of them, because Flynn really liked uniforms, briefly.
This isn't going to be an SS uniform, is it?
No.
Actually, no, this is too early
for
that.
No, well, that's foreshadowing. They briefly joined the Royal Hong Kong Army Volunteers and then promptly deserted.
Oh, what? How soon after?
I don't know, but they weren't in long. Long enough for Flynn to just be like, "Oh, this is nice, isn't it?" And then he got bored when this is rubbish.
Like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, he escaped Hong Kong and he went to England in 1933 and he joined the Royal Theatre in Northampton.
Oh.
He caused a bit of a stir in Northampton because his lodgings were opposite a shoe factory and he had a habit of standing naked by the window and showing off. So he'd flex his muscles and be like, "Ooh, look at me, I'm a sexy boy." And apparently the women who worked in the shoe factory used to watch him. And
like the Diet Coke guy.
Yeah, exactly like the Diet Coke guy. You know, it's like, "I want you."
They don't show those adverts.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who's the Diet Coke guy?
Oh, this is in the 90s. Basically, all these women are in an office and they were like,
they
it's
go, Diet Coke
11:30.
break. 11:30.
It's 11:30.
Diet Coke break. Diet
And then
Coke
they're all
break.
like touching themselves. And then there's this really muscular bloke who's a window cleaner.
Yeah, with no
and he's
shirt
all like,
on.
"Oh,"
He'd be there in jeans. I don't think he wore a belt, which annoyed me.
I think you could see the top of his willy area, but not his knob. It was like you know the Brad Pitt V.
I imagine he was waxed good and clean and smooth.
And they're all like, "Oh,"
like a baby's face.
And yeah, it's all very odd. And he's drinking a Diet Coke, so the advert's saying "Man, drink Diet Coke and you'll get abs." And all these women in an office all want you. And there were these fat lads in the 90s who were like, I could be him.
Fred Bentos did like a take on that.
Yeah,
We make all the pies. I like that. That was good.
But yeah, he did that. The manager of the shoe factory used to go over the road to his landlady's house and bang on the door, apparently. I don't know what, and like he complained saying he was like wasting time. And he was just sort of going around like, hey, stop being sexy! Stop that! Stop that!
None of that.
Like,
None
no,
of that.
I've got sculpted abs. Stop that right now!
Like in Monty Python. Stop
Yeah.
that.
Stop that, it's silly.
Well, he had a brief career in the theatre. This all started to go wrong, though, after he threw a theatre manager's wife down a staircase.
Oh, he threw her.
Yeah, he
That's a
had
bit naughty.
well, he had two big issues in life. One is that he basically
magazines that he sold to people on the street.
Jesus Christ. He didn't like women very much, and he also had a bit of a rage when people would stand up to him. This is very lucky for Finn. Around the time he threw this woman down a staircase, he was spotted by a Hollywood talent scout. And he sent a telegram back to her like, I found this guy. He's a real firecracker. He's a real star. I like imagine like, you know what, Flynn, he just threw the manager's wife down and said, he's a star, baby. That's who we want.
When was this?
Yes.
30s?
Yeah, in the 30s.
So this is
like,
basically 100 years ago. It's pretty much the exact opposite of the approach people take now.
This was the James Cagney days. Like, have you ever seen? He's made loads of them. And there's this one gangster film where his wife's just like, I'm sad because you're a gangster. I want you to stop being a gangster, James Cagney. He goes like, shut up. And he just like shoves a grapefruit in her face.
Don't you...
That was like a famous scene. All the men are like, yeah, that's right, James Cagney.
Don't you try and play that kind of tummy rub baloney with me.
Which poses a question. Viewers, would you shove a grapefruit in someone's face if they were harassing you? That's the question.
Well, if it was like a bloke being like, you want to fight me? I'm like, grapefruit for you, sir. But if it's...
I feel like that's quite a gentlemanly, civilised way.
Yeah, go away. Have some vitamin C.
See, if it's got the
Raising
cocktail sticks with sausages and bits of cheese on, you
that's
could
dangerous.
get quite like a pungy stick sharp weapon involved.
That's true.
I don't know. It's not really fair to use Viet Cong tactics when you're using a whimsical sculpture of a hedgehog made
People
out
have
of
them
bits
at
of
children's
cheese.
parties. It's not a party
They did,
without
yeah.
things on sticks.
They also had Build-A-Bear actors dressed
Oh,
in
for
bear
God's sake.
Don't remind me of my former work.
If we're going to bring this up, Matt, I mean, well, I'm sure we've already brought this up. So
I think we have. Let's ignore this one.
Well, no, well,
so many diseases from children's parties.
Well, we'll zoom through it. Matt Heald used to work at Build-A-Bear. Oh, sorry, I used your surname.
Cut out. I mentioned it in episode 1 anyway.
He used to get too drunk, so they used to put him in the Build-A-Bear outfit, and he'd slump in the corner.
That's not true at all.
I've been told this by reliable sources. That
What was it?
Our friend who has a missing part of his brain. I was never too drunk to work at Build-A-Bear.
I've heard stories.
I always made sure, however hungover I might be, that I was always.
Is it possible to
like Oliver Reed?
Is it possible to be too drunk to work at Build-A-Bear Workshop? Surely,
whoever that was,
surely
they were wearing
possible.
a bear mascot costume, and it wasn't me.
It's possible to be not drunk enough.
Mofo.
Doesn't it sound worrying that this is maybe your
professional.
reputation? They've just walked in, seen a big teddy in the corner. There's Matt, pissed. There he is.
They may have assumed, but they assumed wrong. Because
he wasn't the man in that bear suit.
I was the best mascot they ever had.
Yeah, I believe you.
Maybe
It's a weird flex, but okay.
I mean, has this ever been an issue with you that you get confused for a giant bear?
I do have strange dreams that I'm late for work at a place that I haven't worked at for over a decade, where I have to run a kids' party. And I used to do really good kids' parties. Where I met a bouncer once in a club in Nottingham who, like, little 11-year-old daughter had a really nice birthday party that I ran.
Aww.
And she talked about it to her mum. And then she recognised me in the club. And I lost my jacket and it got stolen. She was like, I recognise you.
He's the bear boy.
I think this might be the most wholesome thing that's ever been
So,
said on this
Errol
podcast.
Flynn.
Sorry, just one last thing. So every time there's a question that I think is worth putting out to the wider audience, we're going to put that in a little bank of questions in my head, and then eventually, when one is funny enough, we're going to ring Doug and we're going to ask him the question. So
I just need to be...
are we going to do an Ask Doug?
I think we are.
I think I just need to be very careful to not mistake big stuffed bears for Matt in a costume.
Yeah.
Because when the fair's in town, I might be like, that couple's dragging Matt away. Oh my God!
You wander up to them and say, I don't like
You there,
smart.
get off him!
I don't like smart.
Oh yeah,
And punch him in the stomach.
That got us in trouble with the BBC, didn't it?
We-
I don't like
That's
smart cunts.
Now this is majorly derailed. We were doing filmed work at a reconstructed Anglo-Saxon village.
We were
We're
extra
told
men.
to be quiet on set. Simon walks up to me shouting, I don't like smart cunts. He tries to knee me in the bollocks. Based on a not very well-known Australian film that we may cover at some point.
There's an Australian man who was brought up by his mum in a shed, and he can only communicate by walking up to people going, I don't like smart cunts, and then like kicking them in the bollocks.
Assaulted a man with a dead
Why haven't we
cat.
done a podcast on this guy?
Have you
We
ever
will.
seen the film Bad Boy, Bobby?
Oh, we should make you watch it.
No, I haven't.
That'd be naughty.
Okay, fair enough. I'm up for
If
that.
you're okay with
Oh.
stylized fake animal cruelty and
Kids, do you like pretend animal cruelty?
Are you okay with stylized animal cruelty? Maybe we should ask Doug that. See
I
what
mean,
he
it's
says.
a pretty dodgy film. Anyway,
We should go back to bloody Errol Flynn. Yeah, he got to America. He told the studio that he was a champion boxer, which he fucking wasn't.
that's a bit of a dangerous claim to be
know.
bounding about.
Well, if to look at him,
All right, bang.
if you look at photos of him, he's not a man who's been punched in the nose. Like,
He was
he's
lean and
statue.
lithe, but he wasn't like a hard nut.
yeah, but also
Nice.
the studio said he was the Irish leading man of the London stage. He was
What?
never on the London stage, and he wasn't Irish.
Sounds like Oliver Reed.
Yeah. Well, Oliver Reed's lies were more like, I fought 100 men.
I'm Irish, you know. Let's fight.
Oh, no, that's Peter. Oh, yeah, he did, sorry. When he first got with the studio, they took him on a night out in New York, like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
show him the town.
Oh yeah.
He took them on a massive detour and said, I want to see Harlem. And they were like, no.
Of all
'cause-
places, why?
well, in the 30s, apparently Harlem was quite dodgy.
Did they have the Globetrotters at that stage?
I don't know. I don't think they would have stood for his antics. They would have come out because they were always teaching kids good lessons and doing
I
basketball.
like the way they spin the ball on the finger.
Yeah. Well, he might have met one of them actually because he, or one of their dads, I don't know. He made this sort of this studio man go with him, and he said that bar looks good, and he was like, "We don't want to go. Please, I do not want to go to that bar." And this was the 30s, but no, that bar looks great. Let's go in that bar. And apparently there were these beautiful women dancing on stage. He was like, "Yeah, this is the place." And because he was quite charming, he brought one of the dancers over, and the studio man kept saying, "This is not a studio-approved bar. You don't want to do this." And he said, "No, this is great." Apparently, he put his hand up this lady's skirt and he found a big old willy.
Okay.
So,
what did he do?
Was it bigger than his though? That's
Did
the
he
question.
roll
We
with
don't
it?
know. We don't
just
know.
don't know. We just don't
It's
know.
one of history's greatest mysteries because.
I feel like the decent thing to do would have been like press onwards.
Well-
you know,
This is a derailing. This is often used as like a funny story about him, but apparently, allegedly, he had a lot of affairs with men anyway. So, who bloody knows? Maybe.
He was Hollywood in the 30s.
Well, people tell it as a funny story, like, "Oh, Flynn, that was a willy," but for him, he might have been like, "Oh, jackpot!
should
Here we go."
He should have been in like Flynn.
But yeah, we'll go into that. But yeah, he basically dragged the studio man to a drag bar in like 1933 when it was very illegal, and he was saying, "No, I don't want to go. Oh, this is lovely." But yeah,
They often are. I think they're really nicely decorated places.
they are nice. While all this was going on, he was married.
Not that I go to a lot of drag.
So he
bars.
was,
see.
he was married and he was going around grabbing dancers' willies, which is not really fair.
Yeah.
On the voyage over, Flynn always landed on his feet every time. He was like a cat.
Nine
me, really.
lives.
Well,
Did he
I don't know if you've
shit
done
in a
this.
box in the corner?
Oh, I've not done any of the stuff he's done really, but I always land on my feet.
Have
so
you-
it's-
yeah. On the voyage over.
That's something, if you haven't met our judge, Stephen Harrison, he is part cat through a process of
Yeah.
symbiosis
He
genetically.
sleeps in a little bed that clips onto a radiator.
It's
That
true.
part's a joke.
That's been broken recently actually. But
He climbs
Yeah.
trees and yowls all night, and people keep turning lights on.
I
and
remember
banging on
once.
the doors.
I remember
just
once.
don't ask me where I was in 1998.
I do remember I once shot him with a super soaker and he hissed at me
Yeah.
like a goose. But yeah, on the voyage over, Flynn met a French actress called Lily Demeter. She was 5 years his senior and mental. But she
What?
was.
How old
she
was
was. He was late 20s, mid 20s.
Okay.
But she was very, very well connected in Hollywood.
woman.
Yeah, like
So-
seriously, guys, just don't get involved with older women that are mental.
Well, you never know. Well,
Bit
don't.
of red hot gigolo.
Well,
action,
no, we'll
eh?
have PC. We'll have bloody PC time. Marry who you like, as long as they're not mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She basically Flynn was married to her because she was very well connected with the studios. She was also insanely jealous and he kept having affairs. He just couldn't stop doing it.
That's a bit naughty.
Well, his excuse was, women throw themselves at me. I come home trying to be loyal and there's one under my bed. I can't send her home. I have to make love to her.
I'm guessing he wasn't engaged anymore at this stage.
Well, he was married, so often he would come home.
Sorry,
so technically not engaged, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean what I say.
He would often come home to Lily, who would throw plates and
Lily Demeter.
Yeah, plates. Nice to meet you, Lily Demeter. She would often throw plates and plant pots at him. So she'd like a Looney Tunes character. She'd smash the over the head.
Like a bad fascio sketch with the head.
Every day was like Home Alone for him. Like he'd be like, "This is a nice affair." He'd come home and then get like a bowling ball to the head.
Oh god!
On the big incident, there was one big incident that was like the worst one. She had their first wedding anniversary. Invited all the friends around for a big party. He turned up battered, late. Said, "Happy anniversary, darling," and then hit himself over the head with a bottle of champagne.
What?
I'm sorry, what? Honestly, that is beautiful. So, what? He turned up home late, presumably drunk.
To his anniversary party with all their friends.
Oh, to the anniversary party.
And she was very angry, like, "Errol, where have you been?"
And then
"Happy anniversary, darling."
Knocks himself out with the do you think he did that because he assumed she was about to do it, or did he do it just to prove a point?
Well, this is where he gets quite naughty. This led to a fight where he knocked one of her teeth out.
Ooh,
which is quite bad.
No.
There was also one very bad incident where he was very drunk and thought it'd be funny to buy a lion cub in Chicago.
Okay.
Where he was staying with his wife. He sobered up, realised, what am I going to do with this? So he took it to the front desk and said, "This belongs to Mrs. Flynn. She'll be collecting it soon," and then he left town.
What happened to that?
We don't know!
You can't...
This
isn't
Oliver
Tiger
Reed and
King.
Keith Moon with their tortoise that had delivered them shots of whiskey.
But they looked after those tortoises.
Yeah.
I mean,
at least they were decent fellows, you know.
I was telling my hairdresser about the tortoise today.
Were you? Very good for you.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard our episode, they were told to like slow down the drinking. So they had pet tortoises and they would put double whiskies on the tortoise's back. And they'd walk their little tortoises over to each other.
Tortoise power!
Imagine that. So if myself and Matt were here right now, see, he's just had a drink. If I were to pour Matt a drink and then put it on a tortoise and then walk it over to Matt, then Matt took a drink. That's how
Polish
cool that would
beer
be.
strapped to his
Oh,
back.
yeah.
What if he doesn't want to play ball, though?
Well, then you get another tortoise.
What do you do
That's
to
the
an
question.
ornery tortoise?
I think you go on Facebook and be like, "This tortoise is bad, who wants it?"
Status.
Can I just say though, I think there's just something particularly magical and legendary about a man who arrives late to his own anniversary party and then knocks himself out with a wine bottle.
The trouble is
that is just beautiful. So it reminds me of a story where my housemate he was once involved with a lady who sometimes we'd get a little bit battered and we'd walk home and she'd be waiting in the window and it'd be like a weird parody of Romeo and Juliet where she'd be looking down and go, "You're right, boys, you've been out late," and we'd look at each other horrified. And me and him would have to then like have a moment of understanding where we'd then act the fool and be all funny until she left, and then we knew it was safe for him to go inside.
The lack of specifics in this story is making me struggle.
Yeah. Who are they?
Funny. This is the most generic story of tomfoolery I've heard in a while.
This is tomfoolery, but
one time me and this other guy used to do things that were quite humorous, but I can't tell you any details.
I really can't. That's
it's like you've been up to all-timey hijinks, but you've fouled the numbers off.
Oh, you roister doister, you.
We'd basically just get back. She'd be waiting in the window, and we'd have to just like he'd stagger around a bit, and I'd steady him and be like, "Oh, all right, there, old fella, you'll be all right. You'll make it inside."
Was it Benji?
And then he'd fall over a few times. It might have been. And then when I'd pick him up, and eventually
I like that I can
she'd
guess which one of your friends this is because you went, "Ooh, I can't stand up."
Or bounce off the walls, but
Yeah.
fine. I've got
Anyway.
So that brings us to the question, viewers. If you arrived late to your anniversary party, would you knock yourself out with a champagne bottle and say, "Happy anniversary, darling"?
Well, if you did
Which
that and then said
star?
"Happy anniversary, darling," it'd be quite impressive.
Well,
I think
the other way around, presumably. But
In his defence, he woke up in hospital and was very apologetic, but charming people often are.
To whom?
Well, his wife, because he knocked one of her teeth out, which is
shit, yeah.
quite
yeah,
bad.
I mean, none of us have ended up in hospital recently after
dear.
drinks have been smashed.
Nah, we've never been such thing.
I just pump my own stomach when it goes.
Thanks. Oh, I need to buy a stomach pump. That'd be amazing in the morning. No need for vomit now. I got
you homebrew kit with a sort of siphon thing. That could work.
Here we are, Nanny's paracetamol remover. You'll be sad forever. I won't let you die. Anyway.
Why deprive the NHS of their valuable time when we can do it at home?
Anyway, he made a film called Captain Blood. This is how well connected his wife Lily was.
I've heard of Captain Blood.
It's good. This is the annoying thing. He's good on screen, but he was a total unknown.
Shithead.
He was awful. He'd only been in one terrible film, but he got the starring role in this like swashbuckling pirate film.
I thought you were going to say swastika then.
Oh,
yeah, well, we'll talk about that later.
That comes later. It's not 1940s.
The mad thing is,
the
mad thing about all of it. Well, you always get excited when the friendship windmill's involved. Unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Anyway, he had a reputation as a fancy Nancy boy because he always played characters who wore tights, and he started to resent it.
He was always a Nancy fancy boy, wasn't he?
Fancy Nancy boy. That's the term of the time.
Acting. That's being a true thespian. I don't know why I went. Okay.
Well.
Aggressive sweetie.
Someone who sounded like that.
Stefan's had to run off to the kitchen holding his face.
Well, the trouble is,
his face is leaking.
Matt, pretend you're a burly extra and do that voice again, but pretend you don't like Errol Flynn. I'll be Errol Flynn.
Connolly voice.
I'll just say...
How do they do that? You know.
Right, I'll be Errol Flynn. We'll be on the charge of the Light Brigade.
Sex is very interesting when you hit your 70s. Oh.
How is it... Well, actually, probably it's interesting because you don't remember the person the next day. Who are you? Who are you? I'm the nurse who wanks you off. And every day see your adventure.
What, is this in a film or in a ward in a hospital?
Well, when you've got dementia, every day.
I'm a nurse who wanks you off.
No, nurse, I'm in traction. I haven't got time for all that nonsense.
Anyway,
oh Lord.
Reputation. Errol Flynn deliberately got in a load of fights, much like Oliver Reed, because he felt that he had a funny reputation for being an actor. On the charge of the Light Brigade, one burly extra.
Burbly?
Burbly, yeah.
Yeah,
he just came up. Blah, 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 blah.
Next.
Thought it would be funny to play a prank on Flynn. He stabbed his horse in the arse with a lance, and the horse reared up and Flynn fell off, which is actually quite dangerous.
Yeah.
Flynn dragged the extra off his horse, beat the shit out of him in front of the entire crew, and the man spent 2 days in hospital.
Well, that's just rude.
It's a bit. Well, these days, if like Tom Cruise shouts at someone, the media's like, Tom Cruise shouted at someone. But back then, on a film set, Errol Flynn would be like, you, the cheek of you, and he just beat up strangers.
I imagine he said, how dare you, or something.
He's an extra. He's owned by the studio. They bought him as a baby. I can snap his neck and get away with it. This section's called Spine. Flynn was desperate. Spine.
Sounds
Flynn,
like a weird B-movie.
Well, Errol
Flynn,
back to his reputation, he had it all. Like, he was a big-time actor man, but he wanted to be taken seriously as an intelligent man. He wanted to be a writer, and he idolised Hemingway.
Oh.
So he basically...
I mean, who doesn't, right? You know?
Yeah, well, I don't know, he did shoot himself in the head, which is bad for you. You shouldn't do that.
That's true.
So basically, Flynn tried to go to the Spanish Civil War, and people who listen to this podcast will know Robert Sellers, who wrote the book on Oliver Reed.
What madness is this? What fresh madness is this?
What fresh lunacy is this?
That's the one.
He wrote about Errol Flynn and claimed his theory is that Errol Flynn was trying to escape from his wife. Okay. So he said the marriage got so bad. This is Robert Sellers writing. The marriage became so bad that Flynn escaped to the Spanish Civil War, preferring a paella-fueled bullet to the head to another bout of nagging.
Oh no! That's a weird link to my guy as well.
This is a wacky thing about Errol Flynn. He boasted that he'd raised $1.5 million for the Republican cause.
Wow.
They were relying on this money coming in. This turned out to be bollocks. He just said it. Yeah. Also, there's someone from earlier. This entire trip was suggested to him by an old friend, Herman Urban.
That absolute rascal, Herman Urban.
Well, apparently he came out of the woodwork. Like, I imagine probably he was in the mirror, like, my life's boring now, and he just said Herman Urban into a mirror, and he appeared like, hello, old boy!
He said it 3 times, and then up he popped.
I like to think he crashed through a wooden door like a strange Richard Harris.
Or just speaking in third person, Herman Urban.
Like the Honey Monster. There's a guy at my work, which I'm not going to tell you where it is, but there's a guy who's from New Zealand who'd never heard of the Honey Monster. And my manager and I were trying to describe this large, hairy, yellow monster that basically home invasions people and steals their cereal. They're always making like a bowl of tasty cereal, and he just nicks it from it and goes, "Give me that, children."
We know someone who I told looked like the honey monster if he'd killed a person and put his skin on, and he found that quite offensive. So never mind.
Do I know this person?
Yeah, you do. I'll tell you later. But he's a big guy.
Sorry, I derailed that.
It turned out later, Stefan, you could probably guess, what was Herman Urban's real job?
What year was this?
It was 1936.
Was he a Nazi?
He was a Nazi!
Oh, God.
Not just a Nazi, he was a Nazi spy.
For God's sake.
And a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party.
Oh, Jesus.
Also, pre-Anschluss, before Germany kind of like absorbed Austria.
Yeah.
He was thrown out of Austria for dressing up as Hitler all the time because he idolised him.
Oh no!
If you look at photos of Herman Urban, he looks like the baddie out of the first Indiana Jones.
He sounds like a baddie out of the first.
He's got little glasses on and a scar on his cheek, and Errol Flynn thought, this guy's okay. When you look at it, you think, how did you think this guy was all right?
I didn't want to say anything, but when you say like an eccentric Austrian doctor, Herman Urber, it just sounds like an Indiana Jones.
Now, in case we've offended any Austrians, I think we should kind of make amends slightly.
You're not all eccentric.
For the fact that we've been joking about Nazis in Austria, and I think a little song is in order.
Well,
Edelweiss, every morning you greet.
I think we should...
small and white, clean and bright, you look happy to meet me.
I mean, in defence of Austrian people, they're not all doctors. Some are admirals, others are nuns who look after children.
Others are Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Some are really good at basement DIY.
I think that is the extent... Oh, Jesus Christ. That's the extent of my exposure to Austria, because I haven't been like... One was a nun who looked after some kids, and one was a spy.
Or did you know that there was going to be a new Zeus film coming out starring Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, you know we weren't going to derail this, because there's people who will find like a history podcast. This will be good. Well, do you like Wensleydale? Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's big. He's got big arms.
There are some kinds of cheese that don't sell on the rim.
You're quite right, Megan.
So
this Herman fellow got kicked out of Austria for dressing as Hitler, and he was advising our.
Well, he basically approached Errol Flynn like, "Oh, they don't take you seriously, Flynn, old boy," and he suggested. Well, he said, like, this guy claimed to be a doctor. Then he said he was also a photojournalist. And he said, you write the stories, I'll take the photos.
Was he a photogenic journalist?
Oh, he did something with genetics. Who bloody knows? But yeah, it turns out the whole point in being there, Flynn wrote all these articles. Mysteriously, Urban only wanted to talk to German-speaking fighters on the Republican side. And he took all their photos. Oh. After they lost the war, and these people snuck back into Germany... Urban, who turned out to be in the Gestapo, had these people tracked down and murdered.
He was in the bloody Gestapo.
Yeah,
Christ.
Not
worrying.
He wasn't just like the fun LOLO Nazis. He was the full-on scary one.
To be fair, the LOLO Nazis were quite fun.
They were. Starting to think there's a weird. He might not be the best judge of character when it comes to his
Yeah, surprisingly, I think this man might have been a bit eccentric.
What's he doing on this podcast?
But yeah, this has led to accusations that Flynn himself was a Nazi spy for years. If you watch the film The Rocketeer, the baddie in that's actually based on him. But
The Three Musketeers with Oliver Reed.
No, The Rocketeer. It's this
Rocketeer,
man...
sorry.
It's actually really good. It's this guy in the 30s who's got a rocket on his back. And Timothy Dalton's like Errol Flynn. And he's just being like, I want to get that rocket boy. Stop him. I'm a Nazi. Ooh. But yeah.
I'm a Nazi.
From looking through biographies, most likely he was completely apolitical and selfish. Okay. He just went to Spain because he thought this would be good for me.
Yeah, to get away from his wife.
This new section is called Hollywood Drinking Stories and Excess.
Oh, yes.
I like the sound of this.
Should we put a pause in?
Oh, we can do.
Go for a wee. Yeah. So,
this section is called Hollywood Drinking Stories and Excess.
Oh, yeah.
That's the theme. That's what we've been trying to get to, but he won't let me.
We're on to the good stuff.
Well, after he broke up, he kind of hid from Lily Demeter.
In Spain.
No, he came back from Spain and he moved in with
What?
David Niven.
David Niven.
The fancy man.
Oh my God.
They bought a batch of the pad together that was known locally as Cirrhosis by the Sea. And it was just, in the 1930s, it was the ultimate party house.
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there. David Niven basically knew Errol Flynn was a bad friend, but he said that he was an enchanting creature. And he said one marvellous thing about Errol was that you always knew exactly where you were with him because he would always let you down.
Oh,
So-
reliably unreliable.
Yeah, so there's one story that David Niven tells. Well, he's dead now. He said that he told Errol Flynn, Nancy's coming... Well, I can't do their voices, but he basically, Nancy's coming round this evening. For God's sake, Errol, don't mention Betty. And then when Nancy came round...
So it was Betty then?
Well, no, he answered the... Well, apparently he answered the door pissed and went, Nancy, David says that I'm not to mention Betty while you're here.
Is that not the fault of the person? If they know him well enough, is that not their fault?
Don't give him a job to do. If it's like, Errol, don't have sex with this pencil sharpener. He'd be like, oh, David!
It's 5 inches up my arse already, and
I've
the
had
amount
an
of bleeding
accident.
is less than you'd expect.
I've got half of stationery box in my prostate.
Have you got a ruler?
Flynn, who
I
took
suppose he might
Niven...
have just worked it out with a pencil.
Here's
Use
one.
another pencil to prise it out.
Here's another bloody story. Flynn apparently quite liked David Niven's girlfriend, so he took them both out in his speedboat for a nice date. He sort of said, "Oh, you're a lovely couple. I'll take you out my boat." He then told David Niven about water skiing and said, "Oh, give it a go."
And he pushed him over the edge.
No, he did it for a bit, and then he dropped the rope and he left him in the sea, and he
no.
drove off with his girlfriend.
Well, that's a very direct way of getting what he wants.
Well,
I guess.
apparently David Niven was picked up by another boat, and when he got back to the house, he was quite angry. And he said, "This is why you couldn't be angry at Errol Flynn, because Errol Flynn would just laugh at your misfortune." But he said, "I could have died, Errol. You left me in the sea. I could have drowned." Another boat picked me up and went, "Ah, ha, ha, ha! You drowned, eh? Wouldn't that be a laugh, eh?"
He sounds like a bit of a prick.
He
He
might
does, doesn't he?
he might have been a bit of a psychopath. This is an example of being a psychopath. They had all these mad parties at the house. Errol insisted that above his bedroom there should be a two-way circular mirror mounted in the ceiling. In the
I've
loft.
known a woman who had a mirror on her ceiling.
Oh no,
Really?
that's not
Anyone
good.
there?
That's
Anyone
not.
I know?
Well, Errol Flynn.
Give us
had-
non-specific details.
No.
There was a woman and she did things, but not anyone.
It wasn't Auntie Betty, was it? I hope.
No. We
You're
can't
not-
mention her. You can't
Not
mention
supposed to
Betty.
mention Auntie Betty.
Well, yeah. Basically, Errol had this designed, and he called it the jerk-off room, and he had seating in the loft so they could watch.
Written by
guests.
Stephen Jerkoff.
Christ.
Stephen Jerkoff. Despite all this, Flynn was still desperate to be taken seriously. There was a Hollywood gossip columnist called Hedda Hopper,
Okay.
and she wrote a column making fun of him. So he turned up on her doorstep and started masturbating furiously at her,
Okay.
which in modern Hollywood is... Well, they'd probably all do it, but you're not meant to.
Just don't put it
Well,
on Instagram.
This is the bizarre thing. She started laughing at him because she was like, "This is ridiculous," which made him angrier and angrier. So he continued wanking until he finished, and then apparently,
What do you mean finished?
well, I'm sure you
I
know.
don't- I'm sorry, I don't understand.
You know, the nighttime Shaneway, that one. Yeah.
Carry on. Sorry. I should
Apparently,
stop
when
you.
he finished, he made a dignified exit, and these days he'd call the police. But for her, she was like, "That was weird," and then, yeah.
Alright,
This
fair enough.
section is my favourite. It's called John Barrymore. John Barrymore was Hollywood royalty. He was a very famous Shakespearean actor.
Ooh.
Because Flynn had problems with Daddy, he became his new father figure.
He was a father figure to somebody else, wasn't he?
John Barrymore.
Yes.
Well, he had a lot of children.
Presumably to his children, yes.
Yeah. Well,
Not what I meant. but
oh,
carry on.
never mind. Well, apparently Flynn was on the Warner Brothers lot in the studio, and he found what he thought was a homeless man, and it was just a drunken half asleep man lying on a bench wearing a 16th century costume.
Sounds like me.
Apparently he woke up and went, "Ah, dear boy, you must get me a drink." And he thought, "Oh, this is the start
That
of it."
does sound like me.
Well, here's some stories about Flynn and Barrymore.
I'm sorry, so was one of them dressed in the costume, did you say?
Barrymore was. He wasn't on set, he was in the studio, but he just wandered off drunk and fallen asleep on a bench.
I'm going to burp.
That's all right.
Pardon me.
Flynn was just, who's this mad homeless man? Barrymore, who became his new sort of mentor, was once so drunk that he slept through the great San Francisco earthquake of 1906.
Do you want to know something, right? So every time we've had an earthquake that you could feel in the UK, I've slept through it. Every single time.
Well, an earthquake in the UK is like this. Whoa.
Yeah, but I always assumed it was far more dramatic because I've never actually felt one.
Well,
I'd wake up and my mum would say, "Oh, there was an earthquake last night, Stefan." And
Simon
like,
rocked the table a little bit just for those who can't see.
Yeah, if you've never heard the San Francisco earthquake in 1906, it basically leveled the city.
Wow.
It killed thousands, but it was a nightmare. Barrymore became his surrogate father figure. And also, when he was having marriage problems, moved into the mansion for 3 weeks.
The, what do they call it?
Cirrhosis by the Sea.
Yeah.
This was too much for Flynn, though. This is kind of like nature's revenge on Flynn.
My
Like,
God, that man had a threshold. That's
yeah,
amazing.
someone out, no matter how terrible you are, someone out there is worse than you.
There's always a bigger fish.
Well, Barrymore had a disdain for toilets.
Big goober fish.
Yeah, and he insisted on urinating out the window instead. Flynn and Niven had to ask him to stop doing this because his urine was removing the varnished paint from the wall.
Wait, he was pissing out the window of what? Sorry.
Of their house, and it was dribbling down the wall, and it was just like bubbling up and eating away at the paint.
Acidic piss or something.
Yeah, well, he asked him like, "Please stop this." His response was say, "Certainly, my lad," and then he started pissing in the fireplace and wardrobes.
Oh, really?
We had a cat like that once.
If it's
Got pissed
one
in the
thing-
fireplace.
It'd always lay a shit outside my dad's wardrobe in the same place every time.
If there's one thing about a guy that annoys me, it's when he's pissing on all my furniture.
Yeah, that's. I once broke up with someone when I was a student because she did a wee on the sofa, and I thought this won't go far.
I feel like there's a story there, but I'm not going to ask.
Yeah, we won't.
got a
This
number?
is. Can I tell you my favourite Barrymore? Yeah, if you're into that. I mean, fucking jackpot. She'll piss on anything.
Sounds interesting.
Favourite Barrymore story. He once accused Flynn of trying to kill him because Barrymore was so drunk that he fell into one of these wardrobes. Something he couldn't get
Did
out.
he drown his own piss?
No, I wish he did. But a load of coats fell on him, and then something that was quite broad and light, and he started freaking out and shouting, "Flynn, you bastard! You filled this wardrobe with bats! You filled it with bats to haunt me!"
That's a weird link to my guy.
That's why I
as
put
well.
it in. And they were saying like, no, and what these bats were coat hangers. Also, last John Barrymore. Actually, no, not last John Barrymore story. When he was out with Flynn, even Errol Flynn reached his limit. Barrymore always went into the women's toilets. Because he was a drunken naughty man. He loved weeing in the sink there.
What is it with this guy?
I don't know, he just loved weeing on things. One society lady once said to him, this is for ladies. Barrymore turned around showing her his willy and said, "So is this, my dear, but sometimes I have to run a little water through it."
I mean, that's terrible, but quite witty.
Why
but
do I
also
feel
really
like-
bloody awful?
Why do I feel like this segment is going to get us struck down from
Yeah,
YouTube?
I mean, disclaimer time, don't show your willies to people, that's naughty.
We're not going to get monetized for this.
Yeah, we don't...
No, we'll never be monetized.
Well, the thing is, he's fascinating and terrible, but he was also very witty, but I wouldn't endorse it. Like, if he was like your uncle and he turned up at Christmas, like, here's my knob, I'll wee on your cards. Like, you wouldn't like him at all. So,
You're an absolute card.
well, he did die in 1942 from
Yay!
drinking.
He didn't die from over pissing or something.
He probably pissed himself to
Urinary
death.
infection.
I don't
Finished him
know.
off like Tycho Brahe.
Oh, poor Tycho. Flynn went to a party and he was very upset and he just said, they kind of left on bad terms. He was like, "Get out of my house." He said, "I just wish I could see him one more time," and all this stuff. That drunk people say when they're sad.
Don't work me up.
Some of his cronies had a funny plan. So they left saying they were too upset to have any fun. Like, "Oh, we miss Barrymore. We can't enjoy this party." While Flynn was at the bar, they dug up Barrymore and propped him up in a chair in Flynn's hallway.
Jesus Christ.
So
Holy shit!
I mean, that's actually a step beyond, isn't it?
So when Errol Flynn came home, the body of John Barrymore was there.
Is this true?
Yeah. Apparently, Errol Flynn ran out of the house screaming and he was very upset. Because he pulled pranks on people, but he didn't like it when pranks were done to him.
So
he could dish it out, but he couldn't take it, the bastard.
Oh, this sissy. Just because someone took his father figure, dug him up and put him in a chair in his house, he's upset. Oh.
So Errol couldn't take this kind of weirdness.
Oh my god. Okay.
He seems relatively straight-laced to me.
I've got some lighter-hearted stories now. On the set of Don Juan, which was like a film that he was in because he was a film man, he was so drunk that he couldn't sit on his horse properly.
Oh, I want to see this.
Yeah, it's good. So actually, it's well funny if you watch it because you can tell he's drunk. Stagehands had to hold him up out of shot on the horse. So he'd be, you can only see the horse's ears, and Errol Flynn be like, you must be the Countess! And you can sort of tell.
Wonderful.
This was around the time Flynn came in, because he was a single man now. He had 12,000 lovers, according to Flynn.
What happened to his wife?
They divorced, because
Fair
he had a lot of affairs. He bought a boat, and the crew were all his friends.
Why is it always about Oliver Reed had his Chinese joke?
Yeah.
Well, this guy had a boat.
Well, Oliver Reed idolised Errol Flynn, so that kind of explains it.
Oh, that's true.
Basically, the crew of his yacht were all his friends, and he gave them all a badge with FFF and the symbol of a willy on it, because he was well into willies.
What does FFF stand for?
Flynn's Flying Fuckers. Going back to his days in Northampton, Flynn always left his dressing room door open, and he would be in the nude to try and get ladies who worked at the studio interested in him. Like, oh, I'm a sexy man.
Like a worm on a hook.
Yeah, like, oh no, I've dropped my towel.
I'll try and entice them in with my brazen manliness.
Yeah, around this time, this shows his issues. His father got on a boat from Tasmania to see him and reconcile with him.
Oh, God.
He went in to see him. Flynn was having sex with a lady in his dressing room. He said...
With the door open?
Yeah, and he said, "Take a seat, Dad, I shan't be long."
Oh, my God.
This is one positive story, just to even it out. The actress Bette Davis wasn't impressed by his charms, and once on a film set slapped him so hard that he threw up.
Oh, wow. That's... there are those modern-day slap competitions, aren't there?
Oh, they're brutal.
I would have loved to see her compete.
She was playing Elizabeth I, and she didn't like Errol Flynn, because he was like, "Bette Davis, I'm a sexy man, I'm going to do a sex with you." And she'd be like, "No, you're horrible, go away." And he wouldn't stop.
I feel like that's quite fitting for Elizabeth I.
Yeah, well, she wore all these massive rings as part of her costume, so in the script it was like, she slapped Essex lightly, and she backhanded him as hard as she could, and knocked him over. And you know how Errol Flynn didn't like being humiliated? Probably unlike Herman Evan, who was well into it. He basically called her out in front of everyone and said, "That's not fair, you hit me too hard." But because he was a 30s action man, the entire crew laughed at him because she said, "Oh, you can't take a hit from a little woman." And that sent him into a rage.
You just got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah, but I'm quite fond of Bette Davis. She was cool. Return to Hollywood. This was when his career went good. He was cast in The Adventures of Robin Hood, the technical film from 1938.
Which I've seen.
Unfortunately for Flynn, he didn't get on with the director, who was a mad Hungarian man called Michael Curtiz, who would often shout at people and said he wanted action! Action! Realism! So on the set, this is a fun story about the film.
Action.
Michael Curtiz didn't like the way that arrows looked in films,
Oh.
so he hired an Olympic archer and he put the extras in really padded clothes and he had them actually shot with arrows.
This is the guy that we've
Holy
heard
shit.
about. You mentioned this before.
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a YouTube video that's got the guy in it. It was like a film that the studio put out, like, "Here's a stuntman behind all our arrow shots." And yeah, every time there's an arrow shot in that film, that person's actually being shot. And I think I've said before, you can tell which extra's going to die because it's the guy who looked really tubby because they put him in padding.
That's the guy.
Return to a recurring theme. We keep banging on about it. We like doing a sword fight because we're nerds.
Have we mentioned we do battle
we mentioned it a lot. These swords were metal and blunt, but as we all know, because we've all got scars, if you get hit in the head or the face, it'll still cut you up.
Oh, yeah.
Concussive
Amundo.
Yeah, these swords all had rubber tips, but the director secretly had them removed. And he said to the props department, "I must have realism.
Oh, God.
And Errol Flynn was cut by one of them, went mad. And if you watch the film, there are these really, really tall staircases that they built for it.
Right.
Flynn chased Curtiz, all because he hated being humiliated, all the way to the top of them, 50 feet. and then hung him off the scenery, by the neck, shouting, "Is this real for you? Is this real, Michael?"
Just like Oliver Reed. Do you like that boy above the spikes?
Oliver Reed was obsessed with Errol Flynn, so it kind of shows.
Yeah.
World War II!
It all comes around.
Damaged Flynn's reputation quite badly, and he never recovered from it.
What? Apart from associating with known Nazis?
Well, that as well. Well, no, Errol Flynn was Hollywood tough man, but he had terrible health. So when he was making films, the studios would lose days of shooting, because he'd collapse on set. Because he drank a lot, and he did a lot of sex, and he caught a lot of diseases. So he had an enlarged heart.
We already had gonorrhea.
He had a recurring case of malaria, which is from his time.
Should have drunk more gin and tonics.
Should have had more gin. That'll solve that.
Yes.
And also he had spots on his lungs from TB, so he was declared 4F and fit for service.
Spots on his lungs.
So if you see, the Captain America film at the start, when he's trying to get in the army, they're like, "No, you're no good. You're weird and tiny." That was Errol Flynn.
But he was such a dab hand with a sword.
That's the thing, though. He was very athletic, but for about 30 seconds, and then they stopped filming, and then he'd lie down and start again.
That's a shame.
So people used to make fun of him a lot, which he hated. So Flynn wrote a letter to President Roosevelt offering to go spying for him in Ireland, which doesn't.
Spying for Roosevelt in Ireland,
which makes no sense. He basically said, if you give me an American Army uniform and I'm a famous actor, I can go places and not be suspected. There was no reply, and really he wanted the uniform. And Ireland was neutral, which makes no sense. He's saying, "I've got a dangerous job in mind. I'm going to go to a neutral country."
Why Ireland? That's what.
Well, he claimed to be Irish, which he wasn't. Salt was rubbed in this wound because David Niven spent the war as a commando, which is very hard to get into. This is where it all started to go downhill for Flynn. He kind of made up for this by having lots and lots of affairs and boozing a lot.
Yeah.
In October 1942, he was arrested and accused of raping two 15-year-old girls.
Okay.
This is sad. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, this was
wartime antics.
Yeah, this was a fun podcast, and that came up.
Yeah.
True to form, he had plans to be smuggled out of the country if he was found guilty. But the studio, because Hollywood at this time had old-timey fixers, and they had this man called Jerry Geisler, which is a very 30s name. Because back then, he's my cousin Jerry.
Yeah.
He sounds like that director of Conan the Barbarian. This is movie making now.
Basically, they had this Hollywood legal troubleshooter who dragged these girls' names through the dirt, so he was found innocent, but really he did it.
Christ.
However, this is mad. He was found innocent, but during the trial, he met his new teenage wife, Nora Eddington, who was 18 and worked in a cigarette kiosk in the courthouse.
Okay.
So imagine he was being done for sleeping with teenagers. Went, "Hello, I'm Errol Flynn. How old are you?" 18.
No.
Yeah, he was quite a bad man.
I mean, carrying on with things we said before, these sound like entertaining blokes most of the time because of their career, but
Errol
really
Flynn
you wouldn't want them anywhere near you.
Errol Flynn
Absolutely.
was legitimately a bad man, which is where this gets sad.
Bad
But
bloody bloke.
to cheer it up, here's the big Willy myth. There was a big myth that he had a big old Willy.
Was it a big myth or just a regular size myth?
Well,
You
we'll
have a
see.
mighty mallet.
Well, that's what bloody Oliver Reed called it.
I know he did.
Yeah. Well, he once had a gigantic plastic one made by a prop department, so he could use it to frighten director Vincent Sherman. So apparently he called him into his dressing room, like, "Vincent, I'm not happy with the script. Vincent, look at this." And then he dropped his towel, and he had this gigantic plastic knob. Went, "Oh no!
Oh, my towel!"
Literally slapping your dick on the table.
Yeah. Well,
That
this is where it
makes
gets
a statement.
interesting. Apparently, according to his biographer, who often went swimming with him in the nude for some reason,
Of course.
his penis was unremarkable. It was short and rather stout.
Well, he'd just been swimming. It might have been cold.
Yeah, well, his various wives have said it was just normal, but Flynn really played with the myth and he'd play it up. During another incident with Sherman on the set of Don Juan, Flynn insisted that his costume jacket be shortened so that it was above his waist. So he said, like,
His
the
dumbbells.
audience wants to see my bulge. And the director was saying, no, the costume has to cover your bulge. And then eventually the studio came with a compromise where they said, all right, you can have this costume above your waist, but you have to tape it away, sort of like a drag queen or like a ballet man. And
Okay.
Flynn's quote was, he said to the director, My dear boy, I have done many terrible things for Warner Brothers, but I will not tape up my cock.
I will not cover my bulge.
So I like that that's where he draws the line. Like, I've been a slaver, I've slept with underage girls, I've hurt people, but I will not tape up my willy. How dare you? Also, my friend was a Nazi spy and I got a lot of people killed. But I will not tape up my willy.
Man's got to have a code, no matter how twisted it may be, apparently.
Well, I've done a bit of research and I think I've found where this myth comes from. Where he might have got the idea. Because Flynn kind of leaked it to the press a bit.
Yeah.
He had a friend while he lived in this wacky party house who was an old cowboy man called OK Freddy. Yeah, if you look at pictures of OK Freddy, he looks like a child's drawing of an old cowboy. And apparently, whenever there was an old man in westerns in the 20s and 30s, it'd be OK Freddy. It turns out OK Freddy, who was about 80, actually had a gigantic knob. Flynn and Niven thought this was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. I don't know how it came about.
What?
So they conjured up a load of pranks involving OK Freddy's giant willy. This ended when they got him to dress up like a butler and carry a plate full of sausages at his waist at a party. Unfortunately, one drunken female visitor didn't notice this and stabbed it with a fork.
Serves them bloody right.
So apparently they were like, this will be funny, send out Freddy. And then she was like, oh, sausages, and just stabbed it.
Oh, she didn't just go, get away from me, you weirdo.
She just saw all these cold cuts of meat and didn't notice there was a big willy in the middle and went, oh, this one looks good, and just stabbed it with a fork.
That actually sounds like a Billy Connolly bit that I remember when he's talking about a salad buffet and he gets his knob out and covers it in salad and holds it. He said, don't put balsamic vinegar on your bell end because it will burn like hell.
Yeah, disclaimer time. Don't pretend that your knob is part of a display of cold cuts because someone might stab it with a fork.
Very much.
We're getting to the end now. This is called Later Life in Exile.
Ooh.
Around this period.
Exile!
Exile! Well, the trial kind of ruined his reputation, rightly so, because he did do it.
Yeah.
Flynn's drinking on set grew worse. He was banned from drinking on set, so he started to inject oranges with vodka.
What?
He got a little syringe and he injected vodka into oranges and he'd eat the oranges.
I feel like this man would have been in the Hellraisers Club if it was in his time.
Never underestimate the lengths to which
a man will go to booze.
Inept, alcoholic deviousness will stoop to.
Well, it's kind of like, in the 70s, MI6 had to smuggle booze into big diplomatic conferences in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had people there who just couldn't function without booze. Like, I have to have something.
Yeah.
But also, here we go, back to this. While making a film for Warner Bros. In the 70s, Michael Caine discovered that booze was still banned on set.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Yeah, apparently he wanted just a beer with his lunch, and he got told Flynn did that, and he was like, I just want a beer with my chicks. He was very upset. On the set of Don Juan, because this was when he was quite drunk. Flynn was so... Oh, no, I've read that. He got good reviews for Don Juan, and they just said this was a very flamboyant performance. And it got to a point where they could only film him in the mornings, and if you watch a film, anything where it's getting dark, he can't do his lines.
Yeah.
So there's one where he meets these sort of Spanish gentlemen at a roadside, and he's on his horse, and it's dark. And he's gone just like, I'm on a mission from the king!
Slap, back.
Yeah, that poor... He was quite a drunk man. He also
prepare the back,
claimed to have sinus trouble, and he always carried around an inhaler. This later turned out to be full of vodka and cocaine.
Oh my god! How would you put liquid in an inhaler?
I don't know. I assume it was like one of those mist things. I don't know.
Like a nebulizer.
Maybe, yeah. He also believed that he had superhuman willpower. So he just
superhuman willy power, apparently.
Well, allegedly. He decided to get into opium, claiming he was strong enough to beat it.
Is that a decision you make?
Well, turns out he couldn't beat it, and he got very addicted to it. And he used to sit up at night with a revolver, nearly doing it. Surprisingly, the opium destroyed his marriage. I can't think why that might have happened. Probably all the drugs.
Must have been the weird paintings that hung around the living room.
Well, in 1952, he was sacked by Warner Brothers and he had to go to Europe. He tried to produce and star in a film based on William Tell. The funding fell through. all of his belongings except for his yacht were seized to pay for the debts.
Did he swim out to the yacht and just grasp it with
Well,
both
no.
hands, saying, "Not the yacht,
No,
not the yacht"?
After this, he lived on his yacht and he just lived on the run from the tax man. He went to the high seas again.
So, a model human being, as usual.
Oh, here's a fun thing. Because Christopher Lee knew everyone. Christopher Lee always turns up in these.
Good old we haven't done Christopher Lee.
Well, because Christopher Lee wasn't mad. He was a very
He
sensible
wasn't mad
man.
at all. He was one of the most sensible individuals in history.
This informs Oliver Reed, though. They were making a film called Crossed Swords in 1954.
Ooh.
Errol Flynn was so drunk that he swung a sword at Christopher Lee and broke one of his fingers. Just sort of went like, ah!
Shit.
But apparently, I watched a documentary where this is on YouTube, Christopher Lee holds his hand up and he has one finger really badly bent. He said, "That's my souvenir from Errol Flynn." And he said that he was so charming that he couldn't hold it against him.
That sounds like quite sordid
He's just like,
behaviour.
"I'm sorry, old boy.
Yeah, he was just, "Oh, old boy, I'm terrible, aren't I?"
I feel like that was lost on both of you.
To be fair, we had that happen in our society once, and the guy didn't hold it against him. So yeah,
That's all right then. On another film, the director asked when. Oh wait, sorry. This is around this time he collapsed on set.
Again.
Matter like this. An old-timey Hollywood producer was sent to the hospital and asked, when can Errol work again? The doctor said, if he drinks again, he'll die. And he's dying now. He's got about 5 days. Jack Cardiff, who was a British cameraman, was horrified because he said the producer just went, "You don't understand. We're making a movie.
We're making a movie.
Making a movie."
Oh, we're making a movie.
The next day, though, Flynn returned to set with a pint of vodka.
Oh no.
So to show off, like, boys, I'm fine. Apparently, his liver had stopped working. Like, the doctor said he has no liver.
He probably went grey or something.
Yeah, he got very old and very fat. He still fitted in some fun, though. He made a film called Roots of Heaven in French Equatorial Africa. I think that's Senegal now, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The set supply of alcohol ran out and had to be airlifted in.
Sorry,
Actor Mark Dolitz said, in 3 months, he had drunk all the whiskey in Africa.
I'm sorry, he was going to die in 5 days, and then
It doesn't make sense!
Then 3 months later, he drank Africa out of
This
whiskey.
reminds me of
I'm sorry, I thought I'd written everything that I needed to about this man, but drank Africa out of whiskey.
Here's the maddest part, though, of this whole story. Flynn anticipated that there might not be enough booze on set, so at the start of filming, he brought along 12 cases of vodka for his personal use. So he drunk all that and went, "Oh no, I'll have to drink the whiskey now, I suppose." We're right at the end now. Flynn had one last bit of fun. He, with no money, just living on his yacht, he went to Jamaica where he won a hotel and a game of cards. So things started looking up for him. Unfortunately, he released a crocodile into the swimming pool.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, I got that wrong, sorry. He released an alligator onto the town's main street, terrifying local people. And then he crashed his Cadillac into the swimming pool.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Keith Moon did that, didn't he?
He did.
He
No, they were
crashed his
all
car
in...
into a swimming pool, yeah.
The thing is, Errol
And then he
Flynn
knocked
was...
himself out running, slipping on birthday cake.
Errol Flynn was a bad man.
Terrible motherfucker.
But in 1958, he wrote his memoirs called My Wicked, Wicked Ways, where he basically confessed everything. When I'm a bastard.
How many years did he survive since he had 5 days left?
About 4. So yeah,
Oh, Jesus.
It
Amazing.
wasn't all bad for Errol though at this time. This is after he was found innocent in that big trial and he ruined these girls' lives.
Yeah.
He had their names dragged through the mud, like their lives and their families were ruined.
Yeah.
Because he was like, "I'm an innocent man, how dare you!" On set on New Film, he met 15-year-old dancer Beverly Adland, who became his new girlfriend. So the madness of, "I would never do such a thing. This is my new girlfriend, she's 15.
Yeah.
It's insane.
How old was he?
The audacity.
He was 50.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, no, sorry, he was 48, so it wasn't that
that
bad.
makes it
It
all right.
wasn't that bad.
Oh, yeah. This is just a bounder in a cab.
She was with him when he died, age 50, in 1959. Apparently he died because he was on his way to sell his boat and he couldn't bear it and he had a heart attack. I love that,
It broke his heart.
He's hurt all these people, but then, not the boat.
Not the boat.
No, not the boat.
I called it.
He was 50 when he died.
Let me smear my old face along the wooden grain of the hole.
The doctor was
Lovingly.
The doctor was convinced he was in his 80s. Also,
God.
he was buried with 6 bottles of whiskey. Before I finish, do you want a story about how David Niven saved his life, or are we done?
Yeah, go on.
Well, apparently there was a Hollywood producer who started stalking an actress. Like, they do it now. They did it then. It's always been horrible and seedy there.
Let's get it out! Get it out of show business.
This producer turned up at the house saying he was obsessed with this actor woman. I've forgotten her name. He said, she's in there with Flynn, isn't she? And Niven, who was very charming, came out and said, oh, my dear boy, Flynn would never do such a thing. He's a married man. He wouldn't be with her. No, please. And the man was like, oh, you're right, I'll go home. Apparently the next day he saw this woman with somebody else in a car park and shot him in the balls.
What?
So,
wow.
David Niven saved his life.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Because he probably had that gun with him then at the time, yeah.
Probably would have been better for everyone if he died in the 30s, really, because
Probably.
hurt a lot of people. He was a bad man.
Shot down in his prime during the Spanish War.
But he was funny. But yeah, don't be like him. He was real bad, naughty man.
I think that qualifies as pretty mad.
That's one of the best ones we've ever had, I think.
Yay!
So it's a high bar that's been set, Matt.
Well, I have someone who can potentially beat that, but
Well, we're
we'll
gonna
see
pause
what
it for
happens
editing.
in the next half.
Because I need a wee.
Very good.
So, welcome back to a section we like to call Ask Doug.
He's a nice
That's
man
right.
who has a functioning life, and every few months Stefan phones him up and says, Doug, would you eat your mum?
I assume that given it's been quite a long time since our last episode, he thinks he's safe, but here's a bit of a spoiler. He really isn't.
Did you phone him up once when he was on a date and you asked him if he'd drink cow out of a... You drink milk out of a cow?
You had to hide in the
I
toilet.
don't think so.
That
No,
might be
he
somebody else.
was having a meal with his family, and we asked him to tell us the story about the time that a gay man hit on him, and he accidentally led him on. But
That was quite nice, though.
anyway,
that was
let's
diabolical.
ring him.
He
Let's ring
got
him.
an
We'll
evening
ask him
free
a
drinks
question.
out of that man. He should have paid him back.
Let's phone him, and we'll ask him some questions relating to the man we've just discussed, but not specifically.
Doug. Phone him up. His name's the past tense for dig. It's a good gig.
Hello.
Doug. Douglas! Dougie boy. My dear boy, Doug. Doug.
It's ringing.
I know it's ringing.
Do you
I can
remember
hear
the
it.
night we spent under the stars, Doug?
Do you remember the tender moments of youth, stained with the butter drips from crumpets?
Hello, this is Douglas. Unable to answer the phone right now. Please leave a message.
Told you he's busy having a life.
Just leave your message after this.
He's having a life.
All right,
Told you.
Lads, we're going to try one more time. Just one more.
leave him
Just
alone.
one more.
He's probably awake or something. He's always
I'm
doing.
su-
He's always doing family stuff, isn't he?
I'm sure there's a level at which this isn't quite legal, but
It's technically harassment, but
We'll be fine.
we do actually like this guy.
I've never got a tattoo of him and turn up at his house. Yet.
Not yet. One day we'll all do it.
Love you, bye. Yeah, this isn't going to work, is
It's
it?
not gonna happen.
Give him time. Give him time.
Chop this out like a veruca, it's shit.
Hello, this is Douglas. Unable to answer the phone right now.
You won't get him, you won't get him.
Okay.
Oh.
That's fine. When he rings me back, we'll have it sorted.
No,
he did last time.
You got to tell him beforehand.
No, that ruins the fun. This is the problem.
We'll just cut and paste
Anyway,
this in.
this. And we're back.
So we're back again. Yes.
This might be interrupted because Matt says he's going to have a dramatic shit
No.
at any moment.
I already did that. It's too late.
Oh, in my house.
Very good, very good.
Right where I sit.
So we've spoken about Errol Flynn for the first half of this podcast.
I live
and
here, Matthew.
Now Matt is going to present his candidate. Who's yours, Matt?
So I have a
My
fantastically.
bathroom window doesn't open.
Yeah, I was joking.
Did he put the fan on?
I sprayed some Febreze.
It's going to make my curtain smell of shit.
You
All right, come
smell
on.
shit.
Who's your character?
I have a fantastically notorious and popular man called Hunter S. Thompson, the American journalist. Best known for writing 1971's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. If you haven't seen
It's
it or read it,
one of my dad's favourite books,
I
actually.
thoroughly recommend it. I think you're going to like this
It's
one.
really good.
Very
And
good.
I think he can easily rival this shithead that this shithead's
Yeah.
come up with
Well,
shittily.
I
in
may
his head.
be a shithead, but I'm not Errol Flynn. He was actually very naughty.
Errol Flynn was a bad man. I think
Errol
we can
Flynn,
agree on that.
He's definitely a bad
to
bloody
go back
bloke.
to Errol Flynn, if he was found guilty in 1942, which he should have been, he would have got 150 years in jail,
Oh,
which
wow.
meant that his skeleton would still be there. But he got away with it.
Well, on to my guy. Basically, if you don't know the man of which I speak...
Quite fond of him.
Basically, I mentioned he was a very counterculture, sort of anti-establishment kind of guy. Unlike many people, many American stereotypical peoples maybe seem to be saying, I pledge my allegiance to the flag and everything. He was a man who was famous for saying, the American dream is fucked. And publicly, loudly, on microphone.
In the
and that sort of thing.
60s, yeah.
So he made a lot of ripples and that
I'm
sort of
quite
thing.
fond of him because he used to wear a croupier's visor all the time. Which is a classy look that I want to come back.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a quote. This is from, because he was a journalist, this is an editor's note that prefaced one of his works. So, one of his early things. Editor's note. Due to circumstances beyond our control, the following section was lashed together at the last moment from a 6-pound, in weight, bundle of documents, notebooks, memos, recordings, and secretly taped conversations with Dr. Thomson during a month of erratic behavior in Washington, New York, Colorado, and Miami. His long-range plan, just doing air quotes here, he says, is to create an entirely new form of journalism. In the meantime, we have suspended his monthly retainer and cancelled his credit card. During one 4-day period in Washington, he destroyed 2 cars, cracked a wall in the Hilton, that's a hotel, purchased 2 French horns at $1,100 each,
Nice.
and ran through a plate glass door in a Turkish restaurant.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
don't-
sorry. Can you just read me those again? I need to make a note of these.
I have to say, I don't believe that man ever went to medical school.
What was
I've got a
before the
point about
French
that.
horns that he purchased?
In 4-day period in Washington, he destroyed 2 cars.
Yeah, but on expenses, if you can get away
That's
with
the
one
thing.
French horn, why not buy 2?
Okay, so he destroyed 2 cars.
Cracked a wall in the Hilton Hotel
Yep.
in Washington. Purchased 2 French horns at $1,100 each.
How though? Like, how could he play 2 at once?
He was on drugs.
Oh, okay.
And
Would you shit into a French horn?
I've never tried.
I
What,
haven't.
big
sure-
end or small
Are
end?
they pricey, like second hand? If it's full of like a lonely child spit, you can get it cheap.
He
Or
ran-
expensive on the black market.
They're all full of spit, we know this. Ran through a plate glass door in a Turkish restaurant.
Okay.
Supposedly smashing it with his brawny yet slender, tall
He
physique.
was quite slim. I would like to say, in defence of Errol Flynn, he was a bad man. He was a slaver. He did terrible things to the underage, but he didn't damage a Turkish restaurant.
That's true.
Yeah, that's one line he wouldn't step beyond.
I love shish kebab.
Got to
how
respect the Turks and their excellent cuisine.
dare you. Yeah.
Okay, I've made a note of those, so please tell us more about Mr. Thompson.
So, I've got a brief synopsis to go at the start. Hunter S. Thompson showed a knack for writing at a young age, and after high school began his career in journalism while serving in the United States Air Force. Following his military service, Thompson travelled the country to cover a wide array of topics for numerous magazines and developed an immersive, highly personal style of reporting that would become known as gonzo journalism.
You know, that used to confuse me as a child because I saw Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas too early. And I
That's
found out,
definitely
like,
too early. if
well,
you're a
I
child.
found out they invented gonzo journalism. I thought that was, you know, the blue guy at Sesame Street. He just sort of goes, ah!
Yeah,
I met
it's
a
like
vulture.
E.T. or Sky.
You
for
met a
Life.
vulture?
I met a vulture once, and it was called.
Wait,
Gonzo.
what?
Yeah.
How do you
was
meet a vulture?
It was a guy who did like falconry and he had
Oh,
loads of
right,
exotic
so-
birds. And he had a vulture, and I said, "What's the vulture's name?" As I was holding it, and he said, "Oh, his name's Gonzo," and that just reminded me of this. So.
Was it at Sion Hill Raptor Sanctuary? Or
No,
whatever?
it was
Yeah,
at a
that's okay.
reenactment event down in Essex.
I
Because
would
I also
say,
met a vulture and it does similar things.
I would say we'll edit this out, but I was in the pub round the road, like down the road where we live, where we are here.
Not
But
editing this.
we'll edit this. We'll edit this out. And there was a man with like a bird of prey on his arm, and I thought that was a bit weird. And this was the day that my house nearly burnt down and I had to get an electrician round. I was in the pub waiting for him because that worked. That makes sense. And it sort of said, "Oh, it's a bit weird. There was a man in the pub with a bird." And he went, "Oh, he's got loads of birds. He brings them all around." What
Loads
is
of birds. This man's hot with the birds.
Like, who wakes up like Monday's owl day? Better go to the pub.
Yeah.
Tuesday I bring the kestrel. He likes the meal deal.
Well, Oddly, that kind of might link into my guy if I
Did
remember
Hunter S.
to look
Thompson
that
like
up.
a Wetherspoon's meal deal?
Well, he had a pet minor bird called Edward,
Oh,
which
that's
used to say,
different.
"My name is Edward," or "I am Edward." And there's something about when he used to book cabs that used to swear at cab drivers or something. And when a man went round to make a documentary about him, Hunter S. Thompson used to just bang on the cage saying, "He won't talk to me anymore. He's ignoring me. He won't talk to me." And so,
Did you see that news story a few years ago where these firefighters got really annoyed because they were trying to get a pigeon off a roof and it just kept swearing at them?
well, this is
Not a pigeon, sorry, it was a
productive.
parrot. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's
Back
an insult to your profession. You're trying to do your job and a bird is calling you a cunt.
Yeah.
back to Dr. Thompson, who incidentally.
He wasn't a doctor.
Where he bought his doctorate. At one point, Dr.
course he
Thompson, he purchased a mail-order doctorate at Divinity,
That's amazing, so he was one.
which meant he could legally call himself Dr. Thompson.
Are we going to buy Stefan a lordship one day?
Which is
Please,
incidentally,
yeah.
when he bought his doctorate, there was a neighbour of his, actor Don Johnson from Miami
Don
Vice and
Johnson!
Django Unchained. He approached Dr. Thompson
Oh, Don
one
Johnson.
day and quizzed him on what the sound of one hand clapping was. According to Johnson, Thompson promptly reached out and slapped the man across the head. So,
You know, in the
Thanks for
1980s,
tying
Don
that
Johnson
into it,
was like America's tough guy because he was in Miami Vice.
yeah. He lived
He
next
was
door
a
to him.
buff boy.
He invented gonzo journalism. He would employ the style in the 1972 book for which he is best known for In Loathing in Las Vegas,
That's amazing.
which is an instant and lasting success. Basically, he was known for a hard-driving lifestyle which involved the heavy and steady use of illicit drugs and an ongoing love affair with firearms. And he was a perpetual counterculture icon. It's a bit of a synopsis that... Well, let me just get into the meat of it.
I have to say, Stefan's on his phone.
It was relevant to the
What?
podcast. It was relevant to the podcast.
Bloody hell, I have got one or two
I
quotes
didn't
on my phone
realise
as well.
Tinder was part of the podcast.
Can you imagine if Hunter S. Thompson was on Tinder? Well, you don't know.
Can you
about
imagine
it
if
yet.
I was on Tinder?
Well,
Jesus.
luckily, Errol
Whilst
Flynn.
I was trying to do my podcast.
I'm quite glad that Errol Flynn wasn't allowed access to Tinder by time.
It's like a weird supercomputer entity that if he was alive now, he'd just infest the whole internet with his
Hello,
nonsense.
I'm Errol Flynn. Can I diddle your daughter? I'm charming.
No, Norton Antivirus says no. That's what it's built for.
It's just a thing on my phone that tells me that I want to date girls with
Anywho.
nose piercings who are mean.
Yeah. So, early life.
What do you do?
Hunter Stockton Thompson was born in Louisville, Kentucky on July the 18th, 1937. His father, Jack, was a World War I veteran and insurance agent who died... That's not funny.
I like that you're laughing at it. He was an insurance agent.
He died whilst Thompson was in high school, and his mother, Virginia Thompson, presumably, was an alcoholic left penniless and in charge of their charming but incorrigible son and his two younger brothers.
Is it a link that they both had absent fathers?
Yeah, I
Mums
think it
who were
is.
a bit wacky.
Because they both lived lives of excess and
Well,
not
his-
kicking back against the traces and rebelling.
Well, something
Yeah,
that I
of
forgot
course.
to bring up about Errol Flynn was because he had all these health conditions. When he was in his early 20s, he thought he was dying, and he was told he got an enlarged heart, and he lied to Hollywood about it. So he thought he could die any day. So his idea was, I have to live!
Yeah,
But he lived by doing diabolical
terrible
things.
things.
Yeah.
It's like the epic moment in like A Knight's Tale where they go, lash the lance to my arm, I've got one
Lash
more
it to
left
my
in me."
arm, what?
But he went on doing that for over a decade.
The trouble is, if
What I
you...
don't like about that is that he just reunited with his father and everything was going to be all right. He'd been knighted, and then he risked his life. I mean, but at the same time, Edward says you tilt when you should withdraw, and I suppose that
If you've never seen the film A Knight's Tale, we
It's
sort
good,
of
isn't it?
live our lives by that movie.
by
It's
that
great.
code,
Well, I
we
don't.
should do that for Mustard Movie Night next time.
I mean, one thing that really confused me about Errol Flynn is his thing was like, oh, I should live like I've got no tomorrow. You know, most people are like, I need to spend time with my kids. You know, I really want to connect with family. He was like, I need to spend time with a German spy in Spain, getting people into trouble.
Well, speaking of people who lived like there was no tomorrow, Hunter S. Thompson, frequently involved in mischief, Thompson ran with a group of friends that were constantly testing the limits At one point, a group of religious fanatics moved next door. Much to Thomson's fury, he voiced his... Well, he's got a long history of being terrible to his neighbours.
He was very funny.
He voiced his disapproval by nailing a wild boar's head to their door. And
what were they, like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons? Or
it didn't say in my notes, but I could always look it up if you're really interested. But they were religious peoples. And he was very... I think he was not just anti-religious, but he was just anti-authoritarian in
Were they
general.
actually religious, or did they just give him a Christmas card and he went mental?
Not much.
I mean, I can
known,
understand his
but-
hatred for authoritarians.
Yeah.
I can agree on that.
Well, he nailed a wild boar's head to their door, and he put the same wild boar's entrails in their car.
Jesus Christ.
There's no record of how quickly they moved again.
Wait, how old was he when he did this?
He was basically at school. He was a child.
Was he the kind of kid who'd turn up in a trench coat and send you a text saying, "You're okay, don't come to school
He never
tomorrow"?
wore anything quite like that. It was more like he lived in hot places and he wore funky shirts and strange sunglasses and
I'm quite fond of him,
hats.
but that's a bit mean. Then again, I've just talked about Errol Flannel, Errol Flannel?
Errol Flannel.
Errol Flannel!
He was a terrifying puppet.
He'll wash your
lived in
naughty
the
bits
60s.
without asking you.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So he put entrails in their car. Because there's no record of how quickly they moved again after that, we presume he only had to do it one time. They're out there.
I feel like if he'd done it again, it would have been mentioned again.
That'd ruin your welcome to the neighbourhood party. Like when another neighbour gives you some jelly, and you're like, "Oh, they're nice." And they're like,
Congratulations, here's a boar's tubes and they're full of shit like you.
He's got worms in his tubes.
I've got parasites as big as my arm.
I've got bigger parasites. I've got huge parasites.
I don't know what any of this means.
This is
from
from
The
The Hobbit.
Oh.
But at the same time, he was also...
No, it isn't. Oh, is it from the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hobbit film,
that's,
Peter Jackson.
That's terrible.
Worms
Never mind,
in his
continue.
tubes.
First one was good.
Yeah. At the same time, he also developed a deep love of writing. He was a very prolific writer throughout his life, even though he was known to be rather disjointed and the drugs didn't help.
Yeah.
But his talent was such that while still in high school, he was accepted into the venerable Athenaeum Literary Association, or the ALA, if you will, I guess.
That's quite fancy.
I don't think that's known acronym.
By Allah.
Who knows?
Very good.
Oh no.
Oh, he got us in trouble now. I hope you're saying that in a positive way.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's great after all.
I'm glad you're fond of him.
I love that guy. But
Oh, in trouble now.
cut this out. An organisation.
You're all good guys. We like you.
An organisation whose membership was mostly comprised of the children of well-to-do families, but he grew up very poor, so he kind of wanted to better himself.
Yes.
And did a lot of good and bad stuff.
My bottle's got a foamy nipple now.
I noticed that. Skim it. Skim the top off.
Skim it
Give it a
like...
good old suck. There
There we go.
But Thomson was not to be contained, and his contributions to the group's newsletter were typically sarcastic and incendiary. While honing his literary craft, Thomson simultaneously built upon his reputation as a hooligan and a prankster as well, escalating his extracurricular activities from more harmless endeavours, such as dumping a truckload of pumpkins in front of a hotel,
That'll show them.
to shoplifting, vandalism, and eventually robbery.
If this is a competition, I'd like to maintain that my person stole people and sold them. He was really, really bad.
That was pretty
That's
terrible.
true.
It was during this time that he also developed what would become a lifelong fascination with firearms and a taste for drugs and alcohol.
Ah, that's a link.
Yes, he liked the drinky
Booze.
drank. I've got some interesting drugs and alcohol talk
Oh,
later on.
go. Here we go.
By his senior year, Thomson found himself squarely on the wrong side of the law and was arrested several times. I guess mostly for robbery and vandalism. Not
I can believe that.
for selling human flesh.
He sold human flesh.
Well, your guy sold like human. I was making a metaphor.
Wait,
It's
no,
like
he didn't.
The slaves
Oh, yeah,
made of
yeah.
flesh and blood.
Well, he sold
Yeah.
people to work in gold mines, which is diabolical. But
Yeah,
he
that's
wasn't
pretty
like
shit.
it wasn't like Reanimator, where he's like, I can sell you a
He
hand.
wasn't selling the organs like some communist states might be doing at the moment.
Well, like certain countries.
Yeah.
That... I don't think the Chinese Communist Party listened to this.
I hope not.
I
Well, I know, but this will be banned in China, surely.
They don't. Well, 2 people listen to it, me and my dad.
Yeah,
so I think we're fine.
I'm getting a lot of this from biography.com, I believe. It's a very good source.
We'll cut this out because China's powerful.
No.
They're my people, Simon. They're my people.
Yeah, are we alright? Because Matt's caught Chinese.
Yeah,
this is
we're
all
fine.
getting cut out.
We're fine.
I am of mixed allegiances. But
I'm caught a Ghanaian. I don't know what they can do. They're really annoyed at you.
I think they can run quite fast, probably.
I think they've got some good athletes. Yeah. They'll sort you out. Watch out.
lovely people, lovely folk. By his senior year, Thomson found himself squarely on... Oh, no, I've already said that. Right. He was arrested several times. Cut that. He was arrested several times. His... I'm into
What have you done?
Drunken uncle time again.
Oh, I love this. This is my favourite segment.
His misdeeds soon led to his ejection from the literary group and also earned him a few weeks in jail. Hoping to cure him of his wicked ways, the judge...
Yeah, Errol Flynn's book was called Wicked Ways.
Wagged the finger at him.
Yeah.
The judge, in his robbery case, offered him the choice between prison or the military. Thomson chose the latter, and in 1956 chose the United States Air Force. In one of the greatest understatements ever said, his commanding officer recommended Thomson's discharge, explaining that this airman, although talented, will not be guided by policy. Which is true.
He did better than Jimi Hendrix. That always makes me sad.
I loved a bit of Hendrix.
You know, he got bullied when he was in the 101st Airborne.
He had
got
big
drunk.
hands. He used to crimp his thumb all the way over them.
It always upsets me. Apparently, they used to bully him and hide his guitar, and he'd cry until they gave him his guitar back.
They both used to take a bit of the acid now and again.
Poor Jimmy.
Good old Jimmy.
Poor Jimmy. He was good. I was very fond of him.
He wrote a few tasty songs. After completing his basic training, Thomson was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, where he coped with the rigid environment by working as a sports editor for the Command Courier. However, a handful for even the toughest commanding officers, he received an early discharge in 1958, and though his military career was at an end, a legendary future in journalism awaited him.
Is it similar to Bronson, and he was too mad for Broadmoor?
Yeah.
They were the Air Force will straighten you out, and the Air Force was like, get him out of here.
Yeah, they couldn't handle it.
Fucking get him out of here.
That's the thing. He played a lot of pranks, and he was just generally argumentative shithead.
Did he play creative pranks, or did he just have a giant willy made by a prop department? Go, my willy's big. I got you.
Well, I've got a few pranks that he
Here we
did
go.
on his
Whoa, give me the pranks.
fellow
Prank.
Hollywood friends. Would you like... Ooh, actually, I do have notes on
Here's
the
a prank, mate.
All right.
Oh, for your granddad.
This is just me turning a few pages.
Poor Stefan.
Okay.
Look at him, he's looking
I've got a
sad.
section called We'll Call It Shotgun Golf. This isn't in chronological order.
Oh, no.
Basically, Bill Murray, the actor, Hollywood actor Bill Murray,
Oh, yeah.
later in his life, he played Hunter S. Thompson in the film Where the Buffalo Roam, which is based on one of his
I've seen
literary
it.
writings. So, according to a transcript, Hunter S. Thompson called up Bill Murray at 3 a.m. one morning and pitched a new sports idea to him. The idea involved a kind of clay pigeon shooting. Instead of using clay pigeons launched into the air, a golfer would whack golf balls into the air while another player would try to shoot the balls with a shotgun.
Oh, that'll be good.
Sadly, it wasn't always a great idea to leave Murray and Thompson in the same room together. In the early 1980s, the two men got drunk enough that attempting a magic trick in a pool was able to pass for a good idea. Thompson duct taped Bill Murray into a chair and dropped him.
Oh my God.
It dropped him into the swimming pool, taped to the chair. As you can expect, Bill Murray couldn't break free.
Yeah.
He would have drowned if Thompson hadn't pulled him
Wait,
back
what was
up
the
in time.
magic trick? Just, I can't really do his voice. It turns into Elvis, but just, I'm going to take Bill Murray to a chair, throw him in the pool.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
Where's the magic trick?
It was meant to be some kind of escapology stunt, but just the two of them.
Just
Presumably
takes him to a
with
chair
no-
and chucks him in the pool.
No
my
lifeguards involved. He just chucked him into a pool, taped to a chair.
This sounds like the old troublesome Stetson trick.
Wait, what?
The Stetson wants to be a magician. Well, we'll tape him up and throw him in the pool.
Well, for the next few years, Hunter S. Thompson bounced around the country of America working for a string of small town newspapers and spreading a short stint as a copy boy for Time magazine. He also spent a brief period in Puerto Rico, where he worked for a sports magazine.
What year was this, roughly?
I've read his bloody book about
that. In Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
What year was this?
Yeah, roughly.
Early 50s.
I've got a point about this directly.
Okay.
It was in 1960, Thomson moved to Puerto Rico to work as a sports writer for the magazine, fittingly titled El Sportivo.
Yeah. He just ate burgers and booze.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, the magazine closed shortly after he arrived. Thomson would go on to write a book about his adventures in Puerto Rico titled The Rum Diary.
That whole book is pretty much, Tuesday I had a burger and I went to sleep. Then Wednesday I had a burger and I went to sleep.
Got pissed, fell over.
Yeah.
It was it was turned into a movie which starred Johnny Depp acting as...
Directed by the man who made Bloody
Thomson.
Whitnell and I.
Yeah.
Really? There's a link there.
What a link
Bruce...
time.
No, not Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce Robinson.
Bruce Robinson, good guy. Johnny Depp played Hunter S. Thompson, who was named Paul Kemp in the story. Thompson also spent several months in Brazil writing for its only English-language daily newspaper in Rio de Janeiro.
What was it called?
It was called...
Don't know why I'm
Thomson
questioning this.
Newspaper. I don't know what it was called.
Called me out my classic bluff.
Who knows? In his spare time, Thomson worked for more personal writing projects as well, including the autobiographical novel, The Rum Diary. I've already covered that, which was rejected by publishers at the time, and for decades to come, it would eventually see the light of day in 1998 because it was viewed as a load of shit.
I see.
The annoying thing about that is, what else you think? Like, I'm doing alright. He wrote it when he was like 22.
Really?
Yeah, and I read it when I was in my mid-20s. I'm thinking about you bastard.
Yeah.
Doing well at things. Fuck you. Dead man.
Though
That's the
Thompson's...
most left-wing thing you've ever said.
just endless resentment at the successful.
Though Thompson's wild ways frequently cost him his job, they also endeared him to the counterculture that was gaining strength around the country at that time and helped establish him as a fearless journalist with a unique voice. He used to bang on about how the American dream was fucked, and he agreed with the counterculture movement in America, but despite Thompson's embracing of the late 1960s counterculture movement, he was also very critical of it in his writing. Thompson took umbrage with the hippies, who claimed to be left-wing and political, when really they were just after the drugs.
Oh, well, that hasn't changed at all, has it?
No.
I mean, they've evolved so much since those days.
Where did I get to? So, in 1965, these bohemian credentials earned him an assignment to write an article for the Nation about the Hells Angels motorcycle club.
Yeah, this is mad.
Published in May, the story was a huge sensation, and it led to a book deal for Thompson, who embedded himself with the notorious gang for a year. He lived with the Hells Angels for a full year. I mean, he was a bit of a spicy guy, but Hells Angels were really a bit hardcore even for him.
This was back in the day when they were quite scary. Well, they're probably a bit scary now.
Yes.
But these days they're sort of like... Well, maybe in Britain, like a bikie gang is sort of some dads who hang about.
Mm.
And back then they were kind of terrifying.
They've kind of been watered down by today's standards because everybody's doing it now and the message has been lost along the way.
These days it's like dads in denim vests, but then they were scary boys.
We don't know anyone like that, do we?
Well, though its members nearly killed him at the end of his time with them.
They nearly killed him?
See, I told you, scary boys.
I've got a point about that. Thomson came out the other side with the book Hells Angels, The Strange and Terrible Saga of the Outlaw Motorcycle Gangs, published in 1967. The immersive and hallucinatory first-person account, because they took lots of drugs, of his experiences, was an instant smash, firmly establishing Thomson as a journalistic force and launching what would be his trademark style.
Can I be Norbert Know-It-All and add something to that?
Go on.
There's a clip that's still available on YouTube, and it was on American TV in 1960, and Hunter S. Thompson challenged the Hells Angels, and it's mad knowing that they were very scary back then. They didn't like the book because he added things like they had pretend marriages
Yeah,
And when they had
old
them,
ladies and that sort of thing.
yeah, they used to beat the wives. And there
I've
was
got a point about it here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you go. Take it.
Well, on one occasion, Hunter S. Thompson, he witnessed a particularly nasty member of the gang known as Junkie George brutally beating his partner. George also struck his dog when the animal got in the way of the domestic spats. The dog was trying to protect her.
Dogs are good, aren't they?
Yeah, but a disgusted Hunter S. Thompson tried to stop Junkie George, insisting that only a punk beats his wife and dog. So he's a good bloke.
I love that. Like, we're not. If you're not sure who the goody is in this scenario, the other guy was called Junkie George.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you meant between him and Errol Flynn.
Him and Junkie George.
Yeah. Junkie George. So he said only a punk beats his wife and dog. George respectably showed his difference in opinion with a savage beating that he and his friends bestowed upon Thomson. Allegedly, Thomson was very nearly killed in this assault, but luckily was only hospitalised. Because the universe has a strange sense of humour, Thomson appeared on a CBC chat show in 1967, and the show surprised him by inviting on one of the Hell's Angels who had beaten him within an inch of his life.
He turns up on his bike in the studio, which is weird, because he just wheels it like 5 metres, and then revs the engine like, I'm a bike man!
This is available to be seen online, and it contains far more audience laughter than a story of why beating and assault should logically happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The audience laugh because like motorbike man silly.
Yeah,
saying like this is awful stuff.
Well, with the proceeds from this is a section I call Gonzo journalism.
Am I allowed to secretly have a wee and no one can tell that I'm doing it?
No,
yeah, of course, yeah.
you have to pause it.
Well, I'll do it under the table.
No, you can talk about your.
No, I'll do it under the table. You can't tell.
So I'll go for one as well.
Oh, fucking hell, Matt. You've let us all down.
So, this is a section I call Gonzo journalism. With the proceeds from Hell's Angels, in 1967, Thomson bought a compound on the outskirts.
Bought a compound.
The best people live on compounds,
It never ends well when you buy a
This is
compound.
gonna go well.
Ooh! I have a little quote about this actually.
About the compound.
Because
Are
basically
we
they
going to
asked
get a
him.
compound?
He had an interview with Salon magazine, I believe.
Have you put a tea bag on my book that's propping up my hot laptop?
It's on foil.
Not quite.
Oh, very
It's
good.
on foil. So basically, he was asked about how many firearms that he owns.
Oh my
And
God.
what his views were, because he was a member of the National Rifle Association.
He loved his guns.
loved his guns.
He loved them.
But
And I love him.
Let me get to the bit about the guns. So, when they basically said, I understand you're a gun enthusiast, to put it euphemistically, and they asked him about his compound, and they heard it was like a fortified thing. He basically said it was his reputation that kept people off it. It was just a farm, but if they believe they're going to be shot to death, then that'll keep them away as much as any security.
It's kind of
system.
like, I think later on we'll probably do Dennis Hopper.
Oh, maybe.
Because in Dennis Hopper, when LA was really, really... Well, it's scary again because it's gone mad. But when it was really scary in the late 80s, early 90s, he built a concrete bunker in the middle of LA. And he turned it with a load of guns, and he spread rumours around like the local gangs like there's a crazy man there. And he just waited in his basement with a rifle like, yes.
Well, that's very much what Hunter S. Thompson kind of did in a way. He snorted a lot of coke whilst doing interviews, whilst on camera. And he would say...
I forgot a bit. Errol Flynn thought that cocaine was an aphrodisiac. It isn't. It just makes you really selfish and mean.
Didn't it make you really impotent?
Yeah, it makes the snake of horror go floppy. But he used to put it on the end, and he thought that the ladies will love this. And it didn't. I don't know how that worked.
So they asked Hunter S. Thompson, I understand you're a gun enthusiast, to put it euphemistically, but do you support restrictive gun laws, more restrictive gun laws? Do you support a ban on assault weapons? And he said, my impression is largely based on Johnny Depp's impression of him in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So I said, I have 1 or 2 of those, but I got them before they were illegal. In that case, if I was sure that any tragedies and mass murders would be prevented, I'd give up my assault rifle. But I don't really believe that. Do I have any illegal weapons? No. I have a .454 Magnum revolver, which is huge. And it's absolutely legal. One day I was wild out here with Johnny Depp. And we both ordered these guns from Freedom, Wyoming. And we got them the next day through FedEx. Mainly I have rifles, pistols, shotguns. I have a lot of those. But everything I have is top quality. I don't have any junk weapons. He said, I don't have any junk weapons.
I love the excuse, like, are you against dangerous weapons? No, mine are good.
I buy my good stuff.
They'll blow a child's head
FedEx.
right off.
I wouldn't have any military weapon around here except as an artifact of some kind.
Well, no, he did own one. He had a Walther P38 that was well into.
He had a Luger as well. They used to fire at the neighbours. I have a thing about his neighbours, actually.
Did he have any Webleys, I wonder? I think there's a certain name.
He wasn't a Webley man.
Oh, no, we don't go into that.
No, that's diabolical.
Yeah, true.
Here's a thing. In the mid-1980s, a very wealthy businessman named Floyd Watkins bought the ranch next to Thomson's compound in Aspen, Colorado. The two men hated each other, but in this case, Watkins alienated himself from the whole town as well. He had made his money in debt collection, and he spent his money fortifying his ranch with stronger and more extreme security measures. He even brought Bengal tigers onto the property.
What? Wait, this was Thomson's rival.
Yeah. Neighbour. So Thomson must have seen all this protection as a challenge, and like any challenge he was faced with, he accepted it full throttle. Thomson drove up to Watkins' mansion and emptied 3 guns' worth of bullets into it before speeding off.
I wanna win, but when your opponent knows you're coming and he buys 2 tigers.
Yeah. To keep Thomson out, basically. By the time
was his opponent called Blofeld?
No, he's called Floyd Watkins.
Oh, no. Did he have a load of henchmen who wore like matching boiler suits?
Potentially.
Was his house a volcano?
No, because it was in Aspen, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
There is a mountainous region. I don't know.
I mean, it's a reasonable question.
By the time he was apprehended, Thomson had an alibi. He was apparently shooting at a porcupine. And his guns had been destroyed already, so that a ballistics test was out of the question.
I hope this doesn't ruin it, but have you seen the video clip of him having a war with maybe that neighbour, maybe another neighbour?
Well, Thomson was never charged.
Oh, well, there's a video clip when some people made a documentary about him in the 80s or the 90s, I'm not sure when, and he was having like a bit of a war with his neighbour. And there's a bit where something rustles his hedges and nearly hits him. And he just shouts, "If you want to kill me, you don't want to use birdshot, asshole."
Yeah. There's a video of him just firing a Luger at the neighbour going, "If this motherfucker wants to be a little bitch, I'll fucking give him something bitch about fucking fuck you."
Because his neighbour was just like a bit of birdshot. That's not murderous. But
you know how I am when I drink caffeine, as I've had 2 cups of Earl Grey by now.
My God, man. You're just like Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson.
You had 2 cups of Earl Grey and you've gone mad.
I'm unstoppable, you motherfucker. I'm just like...
I mean, there's many an anecdote of that time when Hunter S. Thompson had a couple of pyramids of PG tips.
He used to
he went out of control.
He used to use different drugs for different methods.
Really
I've got a drug thing later on. But basically, where I left off, he had a compound in the outskirts of Aspen, Colorado, an area where he loved, which he named Owl Creek. And he moved there with his wife, Sandy Conklin, whom he had married in 1963, and their son, Juan.
Can you warn me if he's going to do naughty bad things? Because I'm quite fond of him. Errol Flynn made me sad.
Well, there was one incident where he used to have a lot of drunken arguments with his wife, where he'd get really, really smashed on whiskey, like Chivas Regal.
But there was nothing with underage.
No.
Good stuff.
But there was one incident.
No, that's not good stuff. But
apparently, I recall one incident where he was saying to his wife, "I want that gun," and she was holding a gun and saying, "You can't have this gun." Saying, I want that gun. You're going to give me that gun. If you don't, I'll take this boot and I'll throw it through that window. And
that's a weird threat.
Yeah.
I'll break our window, then I'll have to pay for a man to replace it.
Insane. But despite these seemingly domestic trappings, it said, Thomson was anything but settled down. He travelled constantly on assignments for a wide variety of magazines, covering topics such as the hippie movement, the Vietnam War, got a point about that, and the 1968 presidential campaigns, all in his now characteristically irreverent style. So gonzo journalism, apparently in South Boston Irish slang, gonzo means like last man standing.
I thought it was Charles Dickens from the classic A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, the alien Gonzo. with
Which
big
is the
nose.
best version of Christmas Carol ever made.
Agreed. I can't argue with that.
No.
But basically, Gonzo is one of the styles of journalism where instead of concentrating on the task at hand, he basically wrote about just weird drunks, drug heads, and lunatics that used to frequent these events. I think we can kind of relate to.
Because we wouldn't be anything like them, would we?
Yeah, definitely.
We're not. I don't do
We're
the
not-
drugs.
We're
But
not drink men. That's bad.
my silence speaks volumes.
Well, I would never drink a booze. It's terrible for you.
Drink a booze.
I'd never drink a booze.
Well, basically, among the best known and important of his pieces was a piece called "The Kentucky Derby is Decadent and Depraved," a rambling, willingly subjective account of the Derby. There was more the experience of watching it than it was about the race itself, because he was meant to go and comment on the race.
Yeah.
He was more interested in the nut jobs that were around him, talking about how drunk they were, stumbling about and talking shit.
It's been me fucking know-it-all, but what I love is that he would always fail the assignment, wouldn't read it, and would just give whatever he wanted to his editors, but it would be better than what they wanted.
Hence the
So
editors.
great.
Hence the editors note that the bundle that he sent in weighed 6 pounds. It was made of
Yeah.
documents, tapes, and various
Yeah,
other
You
things.
know, when you were a student, you handed an essay in at 8 a.m. after starting it at like 10 the night before.
Like my
Yeah.
dissertation, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell.
I have
He
a
was-
friend who got so out of his gourd on nervousness and alcohol, presumably, that he took it into his head that a picture's worth 1,000 words. So he handed in an essay that was 3 pictures.
Oh my god.
And
How did that go?
Not very well.
Hunter S. Thompson was like that, but on an insane level.
Well, published in the June 1970 edition of Scanlan's Monthly, and with
Oh,
illustrations
my favourite
by
magazine.
British artist Ralph Steadman, who
Oh,
also
oh.
filmed a documentary about him.
Also did the illustrations for Bloody Whitnell and I.
Yes,
Did the poster. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
That's a link.
Ralph
Yeah.
Steadman and Hunter S. Thompson were friends, but then they met up to do a documentary. Ralph Steadman honestly said he may not recognise me when I see him again. And then when Thompson turned up in this bright red American car and everything,
Amazing.
he turned up, shouted some, "Hey, what are you fucking doing over here? These animals are fucking whatever," and then drove away, leaving Steadman going, "Hey, come back!" It was hailed as a knockout breakthrough in journalism and is considered the
Or
first
just him
ever...
saying, hello, blah, 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 and he drove off.
No, this is about the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, sorry, I thought just him saying, like, I'm turning up in my car, and then the guy
That
goes,
was
oh, no,
later
I'm
in
not the guy.
Thompson's life. That's a bit of a... It's on YouTube, that documentary, and it's quite nuts, to say the least. But the Kentucky Derby was viewed very well and became known later as gonzo journalism, which is a bit like Anthony Bourdain's travels about going to Morocco and smuggling loads of hash, or
Poor Anthony, he was a nice man.
getting off his arse on cocktails and that sort of thing. I love that sort of
I
thing.
can't go back because, he had a sad end. So, yeah.
Much like Hunter S. Thompson.
Less sad, but
Which
still
was
not
less
good.
sad.
Still not
Rebellious. Yet even his newfound success could not quiet the troublemaker in Thompson's heart. And in 1970, he decided to shake up the local establishment by running for sheriff of Pitkin
Nice.
County, Colorado, on the Freak Power ticket, it says.
Wait, so that was his party? Freak Power?
Basically, it was like he represented anti-establishmentism.
So you said the Freak Power ticket, so his party was called Freak Power.
I think so.
I like
I'd
that you
have to do
consulted
more
you know, like,
research
was
into
it the
it.
Freak Power party? I'm not sure.
Well, basically, it says in one of his most bizarre incidents, Thompson ran for the position of sheriff of Pitkin County, Colorado in 1970, and
Did he win?
much to everyone's surprise, including his own, Thompson was set to win the election, but the Democratic and Republican candidates consolidated their votes, narrowly
stop
defeating
him.
Thompson and his Freak Power ticket.
I've heard of this man before because I'm quite fond of him.
His policies basically included legalizing recreational drugs, putting a height ban on all the buildings in the county, renaming Aspen Fat City.
I got really confused for a second. I thought you were going to say it was height ban on people.
No, height ban on buildings.
Like, just like, you're all over 6 foot? No, I'm going to break your legs.
And he wanted to take all the asphalt out of the streets and replace them with sod.
Nice.
He was only narrowly defeated by his mainstream opponent, but his story about the campaign, The Battle of Aspen, appeared in Rolling Stone magazine that October.
Can I be Norbert fucking know-it-all again for a second? Because one of my favourite stories about him is his opponent was this really clean-cut guy who had, the high and tight haircut.
Oh, yeah, like buzz cut.
Yeah, like the army haircut. It was around
us.
that time that Hunter S. Thompson shaved his whole head. And it was just so that in debates he'd say, well, my long-haired opponent over there.
You know when Johnny Depp played him in Fear and Loathing?
He shaved off his head.
He shaved Johnny Depp's head so that their hairlines would match.
Yeah. This infuriated goth girls across the world.
Basically, he says Thompson would maintain his relationship with the magazine for most of his life, serving as national affairs editor until 1999. But relations between Thomson and Rolling Stone magazine, they got strained on occasion. In 1976, he was asked to go to South Vietnam and report on the end of the Vietnam War. Thompson agreed, and he travelled to the war-torn region even as most people were trying to flee. Whilst there, he found out the Rolling Stone publisher Jan Wenner had pulled the plug on the story without telling Hunter S. Thompson.
What?
So he was left in South Vietnam without any support or health insurance or anything, and he just had to make his way back.
How did he get back?
He doesn't say. His report on the fall of Saigon wasn't even published until a decade later.
He seems like the kind of man who would just got into the sea like, fuck you, I'll just swim to America.
Oh, well, if you're talking about the sea, I've got a thing about that as well.
Did he go to war with the sea? Did he anger Poseidon?
I think that was Caligula you're thinking of, and we should do an episode on
I get them, Mick.
So, in 1971, this section's called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is his most famous work. In 1971, Thompson received an assignment from Sports Illustrated magazine to cover the Mint 400 motorcycle race in the Nevada desert.
Okay.
Although he did travel there in March to witness the event, the resulting piece wound up as something else entirely.
I love those for Sports Illustrated.
A substance-soaked, out-of-control tale about his alter ego, Raoul Duke.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, he made up a name. Wait, so Stephanie, you're not aware of this man at all?
No.
So he had a character called Raoul Duke, which was basically Hunter S. Thompson in every sense but the name. And so through the words of Raoul Duke, Hunter S. Thompson's words used to come out through his mouth. So it was like, the American dream is fucked.
Says Raoul Duke, not me.
There's no more depraved degenerate than a man in the midst of an ether binge wandering around Las Vegas. There's a bit where he says he's
ether
basically told
horrifying.
to fuck off by a load of bouncers because he's been sniffing ether.
From reading that,
he goes, dogs fuck the Pope, no fault of mine.
To be fair, thanks to Hunter S. Thompson, I've never tried ether.
Okay, fair enough.
It sounds horrifying because according to Hunter S. Thompson, it's like being battered, but you don't have the mercy of your memory disappearing.
It's like anaesthetic.
So imagine the worst fucking nonsense of your life. Like you behave like an arsehole.
It's like
you have to watch yourself doing it. And you're like, I'm a spaceship captain.
Yeah.
That's cool. Want to do a sex?
Oh, man.
It's like you've got to watch it like a sober man trapped in you.
Yeah, imagine all the nerves in your spinal column are knocked out and not in control of your limbs. Apparently that's what ether's like.
Well, it's like Peter O'Toole said that the best thing about alcohol is that you don't remember what you did in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is...
it's best not to know.
Yeah, he never addressed what he was told. They said, last night, you were sick on a nun. No, I wasn't. I was drunk. I don't remember. Best not to know.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me. It was drunk Peter.
Let me carry on.
Sorry.
He wrote this piece about the motorcycle race in the Nevada desert. Although he did travel there to witness the event, they took loads of drugs. Him and his... he had a lawyer who he was Thompson's friend Oscar Acosta, who in the book is named Dr. Gonzo. And I think he's meant to be Samoan, but he's never exactly
Doesn't he
sure.
just call himself, like, in the book, he's just like a 300-pound Pacific Islander.
He was facilitating the tanning process by pouring beer on his own chest. Because how the film begins is like we were somewhere around Barstow when the drugs started to take hold. Suddenly I started to see a load of bats, and I said, "What the hell are these goddamn animals?" And like he's surrounded by bats.
That's a connection to Barrymore.
That's a connection to that as well, because it's like the coat hangers all over again. Yeah.
I will say, in Barrymore's defence, he was just very pissed. Which actually he doesn't defend him at all. That's even worse.
So
you know what? I think we're going to have 3 ratings after this. I'm going to rate Barrymore as well.
So basically him and Dr. Gonzo, but Oscar Acosta, they basically rented a car and they travelled around Las Vegas in search of the American dream. Would you like to hear
Did they find
what, well, you know, in after a fashion, would you like to hear the drug collection they put together?
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
So this is one of my favourite quotes from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
I'm at a disadvantage because I really like this book.
I feel like
Yeah.
this is going to be similar to the Sassy list of what's in the Tripper Snipper and Big Les.
So
I really think that
mate. Speed, weed,
If-
heroin, some
you're
plastic
getting
Frosty
there.
Jacks toys, grounded and sniffed.
if Hunter S. Thompson met Sassy out of Big Les, he would have loved him.
Yeah.
Sassy would have died in the attempt.
Yeah, Sassy would have probably died.
But,
And the other one called Donnie, who's got a big head.
But this is from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the book, and subsequently the film.
Just so Stefan is aware, this was all on expenses.
Yeah, so he
God.
says, the sporting editors had also given me $300 in cash, most of which was already spent on extremely dangerous drugs. The trunk of the car looked like a mobile police narcotics lab. We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered bladder acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine, and a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, and also a quart of tequila, a quart of rum, a case of Budweiser, a pint of raw ether, and 2 dozen amyls. All this had been rounded up the night before in a frenzy of high-speed driving all over Los Angeles County, from Topanga to Watts. We picked up everything we could get our hands on. Not that we needed all of that for the trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can. The only thing that really worried me was the ether. There is nothing in the world more helpless and irresponsible and depraved than a man in the depths of an ether binge, and I knew we'd get into that rotten stuff pretty soon.
Oh, no.
Yeah!
I love that in the middle of that they've just got a box of Bud, like the most boring beer in the world.
Yeah.
Like, just if we want a normal later.
What disgusts me is that it's in the hot boot of an American car in the desert. Warm
That's
beer.
terrible.
Yeah, it's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, and all these drugs, forget about it. You've got warm beer in your boot. Sort
Yeah.
yourself out.
He's gone way down in my estimation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give him a Betty Davis slap.
Yeah, so they travelled around Las Vegas taking loads of drugs and getting fucked up. Let's not sugarcoat the pill.
Batman!
So,
Naughty men!
on a slight tangent, I've got a brief quote about politicians. Let me find it because it's at the start. He basically said in a telephone interview with Salon magazine again, he was talking about politicians because he hated authoritarianism and everything, especially Richard Nixon, who he said he was an outright criminal
Nixon.
and everything. So he said, "Who does vote for these dishonest shitheads? They are all racists. They are the racists and hate mongers among us. They are the Ku Klux Klan. I piss down the throat of these fucking Nazis." So basically, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was soundly rejected by Sports Illustrated. It
Unsurprisingly,
appeared,
perhaps.
but yeah, it appeared in a serialized format in a Rolling Stone magazine that November. It was later expanded upon to become what is known as Thompson's best work. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a savage journey to the heart of the American dream. Published in hardcover by Random House in 1972 and once more featuring illustrations by Ralph Steadman, the book was both a critical and commercial success and is considered a modern classic.
I just love the beginning of that segment of this tale where it's like, the studio had given me $300, but most of that had already been spent on very dangerous drugs.
That's...
What an intro.
It's like there's a scene in the film where Dr. Gonzo gives him a bunch of acid and he said, "Are you ready to check into a hotel and with a head full of acid?" And then he's like, "Oh," he views the floor as melting and he says that it's impossible to walk in this muck. We need golf shoes or something. And then goes up to the counter, freaks out, and he says, "Please tell me you got the fucking golf shoes." At some point, we'll watch the film and we'll do like must a movie night about
Definitely.
it. It's very depraved and quite funny. I believe Simon's coming downstairs.
Yes, he is.
I never left. I never left. I didn't do away. I just walked around the room.
I haven't got.
So what did I miss? What did I miss?
Would you
like to give me a kiss?
So I've got a little bit about Johnny Depp here. But first, let's hear about a neighbour of his.
How many neighbours did he bother in his
Was
time?
it Keith Moon?
Oh, no. One time when a bear appeared...
Of course he had a bear.
Hang on a minute, let me make a note of this.
I love that someone has to write down. Bear, bad.
There was one time when a bear appeared at the lodging of Thompson's assistant, Deborah Fuller.
Of course it did.
Thompson did the gentlemanly thing and tried to scare it away with shotgun fire. Unfortunately, when Thompson fired at the ground near the bear, the shotgun pellets ricocheted up and hit Fuller in the arm and leg.
Oh, shit.
Wait, what? It hit his assistant?
Yeah.
Like,
He
I'll save him from this bear.
Shot his assistant by accidentally firing at her with a shotgun. According to Fuller, Thompson felt horrible about the accident and she didn't file charges against him.
To be fair, with all being there, you've been trying to scare a bear off
just
and
a neighbourly thing to do.
you accidentally shoot a friend trying to scare a bear.
Yeah. Thompson remains best known for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 1971, a book first serialized in Rolling Stone, in which he grapples with the implications of what he considered the failure of the 1960s counterculture movement. It was adapted for film twice, loosely in Where the Buffalo Roam, starring Bill Murray, the friend that he chucked into a pool taped to a chair.
Yep, I remember.
Which is terrifying.
And that was in 1980, and explicitly in 1998 by director Terry Gilliam in the eponymous film starring Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro.
It still surprised me that Stephen hasn't seen that.
And Johnny Depp played him in a 2011 adaptation of The Rum Diary. Would you like to hear some about his relationship with Johnny Depp?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Poor Johnny. Similarly to Errol Flynn, he got attacked by his wife.
Yep.
She threw things at him.
Funnily enough,
Well, to be fair, they threw things at each other.
Except Johnny Depp wasn't as much of a bastard as Errol Flynn was.
Well, they threw things at each other, but we don't know. We don't know what's going on.
The first, when Johnny Depp was interviewed, so he was interviewed about the first time he ever met Hunter S. Thompson. They first met in December 1994 at the Woody Creek Tavern in Aspen, Colorado, which is one of Thompson's favourite haunts. According to Johnny Depp, he was sat in the back of the tavern and waited for Thompson to arrive. And when Thompson came in, he shouted, "Out of my way, you bastards!" And Depp through the open door, he just saw sparks flying through the doorway.
Wait, what?
Sparks flying through the doorway as Hunter S. Thompson shoved. Well, he was armed with a cattle prod. Cattle prod and a taser.
Oh, can we get a cattle prod?
He was
He
was marching through the crowd, which quickly dispersed as he tasered
Are they
and
allowed
prodded.
in Britain?
He basically assaulted members of the public
Jeez.
on his way to get
So
to
is it
Johnny
just
Depp.
normal people like, oh, should we go in there today, get a burger? And he's like, out of my way, you son of a bitch!
Out of my way, you bastards! And there was sparks flying off as he just electrified people in the tavern.
Well, old wandering Hans Errol doesn't sound bad now, does he?
Interestingly,
Yeah, he's quite bad.
Thompson also nearly killed Johnny Depp.
What?
Of course he did.
He was staying in Hunter S. Thompson's basement for research purposes. He spent at least a week, I think a couple of weeks, like driving Thompson's car, wearing Thompson's
to get
clothes
his
and everything.
voice.
And everything he wears in the film, I think, is Hunter S. Thompson's.
Is this
real
like
clothes
when
and stuff.
Tom Hardy wore Charlie Bronson's real mustache?
Yeah. So he basically
Is it weird, but that makes me feel quite uncomfortable?
literally
No, it
walked
doesn't
around
make
in
sense.
his shoes for a while. I think.
I feel a bit sick if I was smelling another man's moustache.
The only thing is, he was living in Hunter S. Thompson's basement for research purposes. One day he lit a cigarette, only to notice that it was sitting right next to a very large stack of dynamite.
The research purposes thing sounds a bit like when you get a restraining order. You're
Yeah.
like, no, I was living in that lady's basement for research
Wait,
purposes.
so he nearly killed Depp because he lit up a cigar next to some dynamite?
Yep.
Wait, what? Sorry, what?
The basement had a large stack of dynamite piled up.
Why do you have that? Why do you have dynamite?
Because he's Hunter S. Thompson.
What was he playing at?
Would you like to hear a fact about smuggling an elephant one tusk at a time?
Yes.
In 1974, the world was tuning in to watch the infamous Rumble in the Jungle fight between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Getting tickets for this fight were impossible to get, so it was lucky that Thompson and his illustrator Ralph Steadman, they got free tickets and travel expenses to Zaire, now known as the Congo, from Rolling Stone magazine, so they could cover the event in person. Instead, Hunter S. Thompson got bored of the boxing match and decided to go on safari looking for pygmy tribes.
What?
There's no evidence he found any pygmies.
Wait, he wasn't hunting people down, was he?
He was looking for them.
Oh my god.
But he did purchase ivory from some locals,
Jesus
which
Christ.
caused a huge incident when he was stopped at the airport trying to take the ivory back home without paying customs.
Well, I'll say one thing for Errol Flynn. He was a terrible man who did awful things,
So
but
he killed an
he
elephant,
didn't
did he?
buy ivory.
He didn't kill
Probably.
the elephant, but he did buy ivory directly
Yeah.
from the profits of
I
poaching.
don't like being
Oh,
on
dear.
Team Flynn. I'm like, my guy was a diddler. Well, he didn't buy tusks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. So this next chapter is called Rough Times.
What happened?
I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Riding high on his newly won celebrity and any number of controlled substances. Oh, incidentally, would you like to hear about his daily routine?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go on.
This is taken from... Now, this is from a section that was made very famous by Joe Rogan on his podcast. But it's
Okay.
taken from...
The Bold King.
in her book, Hunter, the Strange and Savage Life of Hunter S. Thompson, by biographer E. Jean Carroll, she starts the first chapter with a detailed account of the excess of her subject. Aha! It's all tied in! Very directly. Here's what Carroll reports
Here
as
we
a
go.
sample daily routine for the
Alright,
Gonzo
let's
journalist.
think, could we handle this?
Note that his day begins at 3 p.m. So a little bit like you, Stefan.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah,
In some
you
ways.
lay about, get
In
a
some
job.
ways that's true because I tend to sleep in quite late a lot of the time.
Oh, okay.
But I have changed my ways.
I'll try and wrap this up if I can. But
Yeah,
here we go.
Stefan just gave him a poster that said "wrap it up."
Yeah. But it's so good.
No, I gave him
Okay.
a time frame.
This is his daily routine. 3 p.m. Rise.
I could do that.
3:05 Chivas Regal, the whiskey, with morning papers and Dunhills, which I think is cigarettes. So he smokes Dunhill cigarettes. That was at 3:05. 3:45 cocaine. 3:50.
I think he's lost me at 3:45.
I'll try and get through this quickly. But
I think he lost himself there as well.
3:50 another glass of Chivas, Dunhill. 4:05 first cup of coffee, another Dunhill cigarette.
I could do a coffee.
4:15 cocaine.
Yeah, that'd kill me.
4:16 orange juice, Dunhill.
Stefan, could you do any of these?
I can't write this down fast enough. So basically, drink coke.
There's no point writing
cigarettes.
it down. I've got to rattle it off, so I'll try and do it
Yeah.
all in one go. So after 4:16 orange juice, Dunhill. 4:30 cocaine. 4:54.
He just writes that down, no measurement.
4:54 cocaine.
454, not 55.
5:05 cocaine. 5:11.
How much?
5:11 coffee, Dunhills. 5:30 more ice in the Chivas. 5:45 cocaine, etc., etc. 6 o'clock grass to take the edge off the day.
Oh, that's all right then.
7:05.
But how much cocaine? How much?
A lot.
Every 10 minutes,
7:05, Woody Creek Tavern for lunch. Heineken, 2 margaritas, coleslaw, a taco salad, a double order of fried onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, a bean fritter, Dunhills, cigarettes, another Heineken, cocaine, and for the ride home, a snow cone, which was a glass of shredded ice over which is poured 3 or 4 jiggers of Chivas Regal.
That was well nice.
9 o'clock, start snorting cocaine seriously.
I will say about this man.
10 o'clock,
Oh,
drops acid.
I can't do that.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, apart from all the cocaine, that sounds like an alright day. I just have a lot of coffee and ice cream.
He's only been awake for 7 hours. 11 p.m. Chartreuse, which is a liqueur.
Oh, that's...
Cocaine! More grass. 11:30, cocaine, etc., etc. 12 o'clock midnight, Hunter S. Thompson is ready to write.
Oh no!
12:05 to 6 a.m. Chartreuse, cocaine,
I'm
grass,
glad he set
Chivas,
himself up.
coffee, Heineken, clove cigarettes, grapefruit, Dunhills, orange juice, gin, continuous pornographic movies. 6 a.m. The hot tub champagne, Dove bars, I don't know what they are, fettuccine
I
alfredo.
think they're just soap.
8 a.m. Halcyon, which I believe is a sleeping pill. 8:20, sleep.
I could do the sleeping bit.
So, basically, that was a sample of his daily life.
My God, man!
But
how did he survive even 3 weeks doing it?
If you
sheer
could just
force
have...
of will
I don't know, if you just
and
had...
tolerance.
If you just had, like, the bits with the coffee and the ice cream, it sounds alright.
Oh yeah.
But let's try and figure out where I got to. Basically, riding high on his newly won celebrity and any number of controlled substances, Thomson set out on his next assignment to cover the presidential campaigns of Richard Nixon.
How'd it go?
Whom he bloody hated. He said he was a man who could shake your hand and stab you in the back at the same time. And he said, when Nixon's coffin, basically when Nixon died in 1994, he said that Nixon's coffin should have been launched into one of those open sewage canals that empty into the ocean just south of Los Angeles. He was a swine of a man and a jabbering dupe of a president.
Oh God.
So
So it wasn't a fan.
he was more of a fan of George McGovern, who opposed Richard Nixon in one of the next elections when Richard Nixon was trying to be re-elected. But that sounds a bit too crazy, and it never quite got off the ground, as far as I'm aware.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he'd truly launched Nixon's coffin into the bit where the water and the sewer kind of mixed together, that would have been a Watergate scandal and a half.
Oh, he's done it!
Or maybe
He's done
a
it!
Sewergate scandal.
Mr. Pun Man!
Sorry.
This is the man
I'm
descended...
so sorry.
This is a man descended from a dad who found out there was an alpaca that was a guard dog.
It was a
And he went,
burglar alarm.
oh, bloody burglar alarm.
Funny enough, my day-to-day did involve alpacas, actually, but we won't go into that.
What's tragic about the story is that Stefan's dad took 3 years to be removed from the property because he just kept going, because he, to be fair, he knew.
Well, that bit's not true.
It was a solid pun, but
Oh, that
he
was
just
episode
couldn't be
1,
removed.
wasn't it? Good
I think
times.
it was
Good
episode
times.
1, actually.
Yeah, it was.
times.
I just imagine him as a 1930s comedian wearing like a pop by hat going, hey.
No, he doesn't
Like
do
Benny
that.
Hill.
He'll just
Hey,
say
hey,
it and then
whoa.
go quiet. Yeah.
Hey,
All right,
your
carry
nan's
on, man.
dead.
Carry on.
Here we go. Basically, appearing initially as a series of articles in Rolling Stone magazine, Thompson's incendiary and humorous accounts were later collected and published as Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. Many of his works were titled Fear and Loathing in, and they're all about how the American dream had lost its way and how he believed there was so much wrong with the country he could put it right by just shooting guns at people and taking loads of drugs.
I see. Well, in a way, not much has changed.
This is where, when I lived in America, I went wrong because I shot guns, but not at people.
You went,
yeah. That's
I
a
thought you
mistake.
just got shown the gun show.
No. On a couple of occasions, they took piss on me, took me to shooting ranges. I thought, this is nice. But
Shoot anyone?
No, didn't shoot any people. But
Did you shoot a bear and accidentally shoot
or a porcupine. Nothing.
Oh, story.
Not even when it ran into the wrench.
Should have sorted it out.
Well, in 1972, Thomson covered the Democratic Convention for Rolling Stone.
What happened?
Since it also took place in Miami that year, he decided to go for a swim on the beach after he was finished. As might be considered typical of his luck, a tropical storm happened to hit the coast that night, causing Thompson's evening swim to turn into a furious struggle to stay alive. He finally did survive, but he didn't reach dry land until 9 a.m. the next morning.
Is this like when David Niven was stranded at sea?
Yeah, he spent the entire night stranded in the sea.
I'm sorry. So he survived until 9 a.m. in the sea in a tropical storm.
That's right. Yep. What a survivor. The god of weather and
Wait, so he was in the water at the time?
Yeah, so Thor and Poseidon couldn't kill this man.
Couldn't take him away.
The only person who could take him down was himself, as we'll find out later.
Yeah.
It is, but it also isn't, in a way. It's typical of Thomson's rambunctious nature that he decided how he'd meet his own demise. But we'll come to that in a bit. So, basically, his hard-drinking, hard drug-taking lifestyle began to take its toll on his output. Sent to Zaire, the Congo. Well, basically, when I've already covered this slightly, when he was supposed to cover the Rumble in the Jungle, as well as trying to.
Did it ever confuse you when you found out George Foreman was a boxer?
Big guy, the big man,
yeah,
the grill man.
As a child, I thought he was an inventor. He just made grills that gave you low-fat options if you wanted protein.
He was a really nasty motherfucker, wasn't he?
In his day, he was terrifying. Yeah, although Muhammad Ali was terrifying by turning up at his house.
Apparently, that's all the rope-a-dope. Instead of watching the grand rope-a-dope, Hunter S. Thompson, apparently he spent his time floating in the hotel pool, while the
best boxing match in history was going on with Hunter S. Thompson just playing the ball going, this is boring.
Yeah, when Muhammad Ali was supposed to be outright killed by George Foreman.
Instead, I'll briefly say, this is nonsense, but I've probably got the wrong guy. One of Muhammad Ali's opponents might have been George Floyd. I've had a drink. I might have got it wrong.
It wasn't Floyd. It was Foreman.
He used to turn up drunk at his house and challenge him in his garden at like 3 a.m. Come downstairs. I'll fight you. And then eventually the guy would lose his shit. Like, for fuck's sake, fine, I'll fight you. And then he'd get his shoes on, come outside, but you're crazy. Why are you coming outside?
Insane. We'll have to do one about boxers at some point. Maybe around the time of the next Usyk fight, because that can be a boxing special.
Boxers worry me, because we're trying to get into boxing, and I can't take hits to the head because I'm too precious.
Kickboxing, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're not very good at it, though.
You got your white belts.
Yeah, that's not really a good sign. Oh, fucking tough boy club. We're
white
belts. Watch out, boys!
All right, carry on.
This will all get cut out.
I got my rabbit punches down and everything. Right, so he is out. Basically, while he was supposed to be watching the greatest boxing match in history, he instead floated around the hotel pool, into which he tossed a pound and a half of marijuana.
Why?
The article never materialised, nor did any other of Thompson's projects in the coming years that were begun in earnest, only to be abandoned later. So he had a lot of unfinished projects.
Oh dear.
In 1980, his wife Sandy divorced him as well.
Aww.
I bet he remarried.
That's all right then.
To a person. But
at least it wasn't a robot.
Here's a fun fact. Cartoonist Gary Trudeau famously used Hunter S. Thompson as the model for his character of Duke, the protagonist in Trudeau's Doonesbury cartoon strip. Reportedly, and in true Thompson spirit, Thomson once commented that if he ever met Trudeau, he would set him on fire. Speaking as a man who once set somebody on fire.
Did he?
No, me.
How did you set someone on? I've seen you being set on fire. I didn't realise that you set someone else.
There was a house party I was at with a person I won't name, but he got deeply into cocaine at one point. While we made a load of homebrew and we were sat in the kitchen having a load of drinky poos, this guy decided to walk around the kitchen in what I would describe as offensively small neon-coloured shorts.
Well, that's clearly fine. You're allowed to set people on fire when they do that.
After a while, I lost my rag, let's say, and I decided to. I got my lighter out, I lit his belly hair, and it just washed straight up to his chin. And then, as he'd gone to the kitchen, almost naked at the time, to pour up a glass of orange squash, he went, shit, and it just poured it down himself.
I was going to say that I set you on fire once, but it wasn't as exciting.
Did you?
Well, it was a bit weird.
Okay, you don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, it's happened a few times. Look,
was he in the bath laughing at Teletubbies?
It's when we were pretending to be medieval men. I was given this barrel.
Mentioned that we're battling.
I was given this barrel that was full of cotton wool, and I was given a smoke grenade, and I chucked it in the barrel and threw it at Matt. And on the way, the spark set it on fire.
Oh yeah, the whole barrel ended up setting on fire. We had to run forward and
we were
catch
supervised by a man
wearing a barrel.
Well, we were supervised by a man who, it turns out, had a weird obsession with paraffin.
Who we won't name yet.
Yeah, and he basically told Matt "Oh yeah, just soak us all in paraffin, it'll be all right." And there is a photo of Matt screaming and he's on fire, and it's quite amusing.
Incidentally, I have and do stunt work on occasion, as well as my voice acting and that sort of thing. But I do fire, but I won't do falling off things.
If you see me in public, don't set me on fire, because I did it to him once and he got all upset.
Oh.
He's like, "Oh, you set me on fire, that's naughty. How could you?"
He sounds very upset in that impression.
Well, I'm nearly near the end here.
Very good.
Give me a round off.
Yeah, this is called Later Works and Death.
Oh.
Because he did die.
No way. Okay.
Like just about all of my guys that I've done.
Like I did that.
For the remainder of his life, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson continued to write, and though much of his published work would be from his earlier, more productive periods, from the years 1979 to 1994, Random House released 4 volumes of his collected writing under the series title The Gonzo Papers. And in 2003, a year in which he remarried to his assistant, Anita Bedgmuck.
What a cad.
Not the one he shot, I don't believe.
Yeah, I've heard that women don't like that when you shoot them.
Yeah.
I got that off a dating man website. They were like, "Hey guys, want a hot tip? Don't shoot the girl you're into." Yeah, there we go.
Cheers, mate.
That'll be $100.
No, that was Deborah Fuller that you shot. This was a different
Stefan, you're a ladies' man. Do they like it when you shoot them with a 410 shotgun? I don't know. I'm a lonely man.
I think most of them would prefer a taser, to be honest.
I get the feeling your dad would probably like shooting someone.
Well, weirdly, my mum met my dad on this sort of...
No way.
My mum met my dad this. It wasn't shooting, but it was this sort of pioneering weekend in cars. Pioneering.
Covered cars.
And it's this pioneering is wacky. I don't know if it exists out of Britain, but you run around and you find a sign, you're like, we found the sign! And then you run off to the next one. And you don't win anything. And my dad was eating a sandwich that had too much bread. And that sounds like a classic my dad excuse. The sandwich had too much bread.
Like a club sandwich.
My mum was really nice to him for the first few hours because she thought he had special needs. And then his story's like, and I was in there. I caught her sympathy. There.
What a story.
Well, so on that note,
I don't know if she knows to this day if he has special needs or not.
Come on, Later Works and Death.
Later Works and Death. Is he okay? Is he still about?
He got remarried to his assistant, and his
of course he did.
semi-autobiographical rambling Kingdom of Fear was published by Simon & Schuster, if you ever want to read that. So, by 2005, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson was in a state of depression. His health problems were increasing from a lifetime of taking loads of drugs and drinking himself.
I mean, I've heard that's bad for you.
But I think he was 67 years old. He basically, his health problems were increasing. Football season was over, and the February's weather wasn't helping his mood because he had chronic depression. On the 20th of the month, his son Juan brought his family up to visit Thompson. During the day, Thompson called his wife, Anita, who was at the Aspen Club. While he was on the phone with her, he cocked a gun and then took his own life as she was hanging up. He shot himself in the head.
My God.
So, when his son discovered Thomson, he allegedly called the police and he walked outside to fire 3 shotgun blasts into the air to mark the passing of his father. No doubt, Thomson would have approved of that. When police looked in Thomson's typewriter, they found a paper in the typewriter with only February 22nd, 05 written on it, and the word counsellor.
What?
So, basically...
Is there a chance he was like, I should see a counsellor? And his son was like, no.
Well, according to his friend and longtime collaborator, Ralph Steadman, Thomson had lived under the belief that a man was truly trapped if he couldn't take his own life at any moment.
Didn't he have a horrible degenerative disease?
Well, his body failed him, basically. He always had this sort of athletic physique throughout most of his life. He was very tall and muscular.
He had some... I mean, this is fucking Dr. Brown time. Like, he had some wacky brain disease. And he was like, I've got wacky brain time.
Depression?
Well, not depression. More like it was all shutting down. Like,
yeah, it
like
was. So basically... He felt like he was kind of trapped in this failing body. He was in pain all the time.
As much as suicide is a terrible and tragic thing, from what he says, it sounds like at least he went out on his own terms.
That's the thing. He always had an attitude of, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Yeah.
And so whilst, if anybody is affected by the issues of suicide...
Yeah, don't do that.
It is quite a heavy issue.
Make yourself use for someone.
This guy...
Be a removal man before you finish yourself.
Purely decided to go out under his own terms and nobody else could tell him what to do.
Yeah.
So he walked out onto the land of his own property and said, fuck you to everyone, and nailed himself in the head.
Yeah.
So is he alright now?
No, he's very much dead. Thomson also left a suicide note titled, "Football season is over."
Yeah,
he read, "No more games, no more bombs, no more walking, no more fun, no more swimming. 67, that is 17 years past 50. 17 more than I needed or wanted. Boring, I am always bitchy, no fun for anybody. 67, you are getting greedy. Act your old age. Relax, this won't hurt."
To be fair, it sounds like...
That sounds very disconnected.
It sounds like he did it.
It doesn't flow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit rambling, and he was still on the booze. I don't know if he was quite on the drugs to that extent, but he was also 67 years old, so he was a bit of an old man. But just to finish up, in true Hunter S. Thompson style, I think you'll like this, his ashes were fired out of a cannon on top of a 153-foot, that's 47 metres in metric, tower, all while Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man played in the background. The funeral, which reportedly cost $5 million, was paid for by Mr. Johnny Depp.
Oh, bless him.
Among those in attendance were Ralph Steadman, Benicio del Toro, Jack Nicholson, Bill Murray, Sean Penn, Josh Hartnett, who was in one of his projects.
Oh, bless him. Poor Josh.
And surprisingly, Senators George McGovern and John Kerry.
John Kerry?
Yeah. And so ends the tale.
Wasn't John Kerry like the Secretary of State or something?
Well, he tried to beat Bush, and it didn't work out, and it was sad.
Yeah.
Never mind. I need a weed, so I'm gonna do a weed then, Steph, and we'll decide.
Okay.
Well, that's probably a good moment to call it here, at least for this particular part, before we get on to the conclusion, where Stefan tots up the points and considers the winner.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Right.
Matt took too long. He ruined the evening for everyone.
You took too long in the shitter.
I did.
I will now tot up the scores, and we're going to do that by going through, and I'll give them points for each thing that I've noted.
I have to say,
it is recording, yeah.
I have to say, I can't say I like Errol Flynn because I can't be on his side because he was quite naughty.
Oh, yeah, you're Tasmanian rapist versus the monster of Aspen, Colorado.
Okay, so guys, we're going to start with Flynn. Okay, so he sought his fortune on the high seas, involving a brief stint as a prospector, or he wanted to be a prospector. So
I got the gold that comes out
that
of
point,
the hills.
yeah, he's gonna get 2 points for that because he also had a pith helm and he wanted to be a colonial gentleman. So
that's
2 points.
Are you saying that he could have got away with all the slavery if he just bought a pith hat and he didn't have to.
Oh no! Slavery question mark is also on my list.
Oh,
and
no,
he's
mine.
getting exactly no points for that. Let that be on the
dress for
record.
the occasion to mark you out as a slave.
Because
So-
I could have bought a pith helmet once and I thought.
Okay, now there's also
Taking the pith.
gonorrhea. That's also on the list. I can't remember if he had it or if it was just like. If
He was riddled with it.
Okay.
Does that also have a question mark?
He was more
I'm
mustard
going to
than
put
Willy.
a question mark next to it because we can't remember.
He was the mustard bollocks man of Hollywood.
But no points for gonorrhea. Sorry, Flynn.
Yeah,
no.
Hunter S Thompson never had gonorrhea.
His
Take
first
that.
job being that he ran away from home when he was a young lad, and he worked on a sheep ranch where he'd shove his face into the arse of sheep and bite their balls off.
I will say, to make it fair,
That's 2 points towards madness as
when
well.
he
then.
Yeah,
was
but apparently
7.
that was commonplace at the time.
Well, I've never heard of that, so he's
Well-
getting 2 points
Well,
for
to
that.
even it
wow.
out, when he was 7, he didn't really get that. They just gave him some bullshit pretend work, and he was like, "Oh, I want to work on the ranch." I don't know why I made him Irish.
I
though,
want to work on
Okay.
the
Well,
ranch.
he tried to make himself Irish, didn't he? And he's going to get a point for that as well, so that's 5
for
points.
pretending to be Irish.
Yeah. So that's 5 points.
False
So far.
Irishism.
He had himself a sugar mama and he stole her jewels. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give myself a point for making that joke about stealing the jewels of sheep and women. So
What?
we're going to have a separate column for me at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
I like
yeah.
that Hunter S. Thompson has no points for not having a sugar mama. Like, Hunter S. Thompson wasn't toxic and didn't have someone he dragged along
The
for
thing
money.
was, most people were scared to go near him.
All right, let's carry on.
Cat prod.
So,
And a taser.
let's keep going down the list. So, he had a weird little Austrian doctor as a pet who followed him around
Not as
like a
pet,
sidekick.
Not a father figure.
Who also happened
Which
to
is-
be a Nazi, with whom he travelled Asia going to opium dens and
He
cockfights.
was in the
Actually,
He's
Say
get-
that to be in
and
the
he was in the
Gestapo.
Gestapo.
Let's be fair. I don't want to slander the Gestapo. He fixed cockfights for money.
Okay, he's going to get 3 points for all of
By
those
injecting
things,
them with
and none of those are for being in the Gestapo.
fighting drugs.
Okay, so he's got 3 points for that.
But the fighting trousers
He
on
joined.
cocks.
He joined the Royal Hong Kong Volunteers and then deserted.
It
Rubbish.
sounds like he
They're not
liked
staying
marching
down.
up and down. and
Nothing
then they
really.
said-
Nothing really happened there, did it?
Well,
No, a bit of a
it sounds like they
non-starter.
said there's going to be a war with Japan soon. He was like, "Oh, getting out of here."
Yeah.
He's no cartoon de Viat.
Well, he he had the balls to do it, but
Did he?
nothing much
He
happened
didn't
there.
have
So
Did
bitten
Flynn
off by a passing
he's
farmer.
not getting.
Ape.
Well, he had a lot of
Bitten
balls
off
that
by
he'd
a
bitten off
ranch
sheep.
hand.
Yeah.
Bitten off by a chimpanzee. Ape.
All right, gentlemen, quiet, please. So then he used to stand opposite a shoe factory in the window, naked, so that the women would stare
Well,
at
we've
him.
all been there.
I mean,
Da,
I
da,
don't
da,
approve
da.
of such
I don't
behaviour,
want you. Da,
but
da,
it's
da,
another
da.
point
You must
towards
say.
being a mad
Da, da, da,
bastard.
da.
So
I don't
At
want
the
you.
end,
another
can we
point.
please sing that Coke
Walk
song? Because I
on.
remembered it when I was having a wee wee,
he threw a theatre manager's wife down a staircase,
which we
condemn.
probably condemn.
loses
we
points.
think it's
But the
probably
fact
bad.
that is somehow something that got him it catapulted into the limelight, and they were like, "This man's a star."
I love the
Oh my
mindset of
God.
Hollywood, like
I'm giving him-
this guy. He's done a weird sex crime.
I'm giving him 1 point for being charming enough that people were willing to put him into stardom for doing something so stupid. Although I disapprove of throwing
Out
women
and out
downstairs.
public
This guy,
assault.
every time a woman stands up to him, he tries to murder them. This guy is a star.
Let's
he
glorify
pretended-
violence upon women.
He No, we're not doing that. Shut up. So
No, that's parody. But
he pretended to be a champion boxer briefly.
But he was very pretty.
And we didn't really elaborate
As
on
am
it,
I.
so no points there. This is one of my favourite bits. He arrived late to his own anniversary party, hit himself over the head with a wine bottle, and said, "Happy anniversary, darling."
Pretty mental.
I'm giving him 2 points just for that
Would it-
because
would
that's
it tip
hilarious.
the scales if I tell you it was a magnum of champagne.
He's getting 2 points.
No,
for that.
you lose points for that because they're shit and
I mean,
stupid.
okay.
As someone who works with bottles and the machines that
Right,
take
guys.
them,
So
I'm
he
sorry,
also
but
bought a
pain in
lion
the
cub.
arse.
nerd.
He bought a lion cub,
pain in the ass.
and then when he realised that
Magnums are shit.
when he sobered up and was like, "What the hell am I going to do with this lion?" He just left it for his wife to pick up. Like, yes, Mrs. Flynn will be collecting
Lion
the lion.
cub. It was a miniature lion, not a full-grown lion.
That is 1 point.
But they do grow up.
Yeah.
It's like you know
If
when
he'd
you,
taken it for a walk, that would have been another point.
it's a bit like when you adopt children to work in your chimneys.
How do you get a
in a
collar
few
around-
years they become tough and
How do
they
you
try
get
and
a
sort
collar
you
around
out.
the neck of an adult lion?
let's just proceed, gentlemen. So I'm going to give him another point for dragging a man off a horse and beating the shit out of him because that man started it by ramming his lance up his horse's arse.
An extra, not a paid actor.
But
They're
I
worth
have a
less.
lot of
They're worth
respect.
Their
Come
own
on.
bar studio.
I believe
There's
that
millions of
any
them.
I believe that any Englishman or a man who lives in Britain or
He wasn't an
thereabouts
Englishman, though.
should be able to drag a man off a horse and beat the shit out of him. So
He was a Tasmanian.
so he's getting a point for that,
I was at the studio hushed it up.
0.5 points.
of course.
So
So
he may have kicked a man in the head. who was
imagine
unconscious.
being so unsatisfied with your wife and her nagging that you escape to the Spanish Civil War because you think you'll have a more pleasant time there. And I just have to commend you for using the phrase paella infused
That's
bullet
not my
to the
phrase.
head.
That was written by Robert Sellers.
Yeah, but for inspiring someone to write that about him, he gets another point. Let me just add that his Austrian doctor friend was dressed as Hitler at one point, which is quite cool.
What the maddest thing is,
So Herman's getting a point as well.
the maddest thing about that is, this was in Austria where they weren't into Nazism at that time, and he was
Of
like,
course.
"Oh, I don't know why it's all every impression I try and do is like an Irish child, like, oh, he love Adolf, he's brilliant."
Right,
Richard Harris again.
let's carry on. So, he moved in with David Niven and had a place that they called Cirrhosis by the Sea. I think that's kind of hilarious. And he also drove off in a boat with Nixon's girlfriend and left him in the sea. I feel like he's
and
getting
he still loved him.
a
He
point,
still loved him.
a point for naming the place
all
Cirrhosis
comes-
by the Sea,
all comes
and a
back
point
to the
for being able to leave a man in the sea and still have him
I
not
missed
hate
a
you.
bit. David Niven was chased about by sharks.
Yeah, but it
And
didn't
he
happen
said-
to...
No, he said to Errol Flynn later, like, some people took pity on me and like put me in their boat. There were sharks about, and Errol Flynn was like, sharks! Jolly good! Wouldn't it have been funny if you were killed?
Right, I understand you're trying to milk another point out of me, but you're not going to get it.
You shall not milk the judge.
So,
Milk him like a
he then
old
masturbated
man.
on a woman's doorstep.
Like a swollen avocado.
I'm not going to give him a point for that because I
Bit
just
of a
think
sex
that's a
crime,
bit
isn't
disgusting, really.
I like that he's like, you say I'm a sex man and I've got no intelligence. Well, I'll turn up on your doorstep and masturbate at you. That'll teach you a lesson.
So then of course, we have John Barrymore, who becomes his new father figure. And he found Barrymore drunk in 16th century gear on the set of a film or at the theatre or something.
Does he get points for finding him?
And then
really.
and then Barrymore also pissed out of Flynn's window at some point. So that's 2 points to Barrymore.
Barrymore
Points to
also,
Barrymore.
this is bad. Barrymore did piss on Flynn's female friends, so he'd be like,
we don't condone that. of
He'd
course.
say that, this is Felicity, isn't she wonderful? And she'd be like, hello, I'm Felicity. Barrymore would be like, get rid of her, Flynn.
Flynn was sensible enough that he cast him out.
Can I just say that
no, he
Barrymore
didn't.
also confused coat hangers for bats, so that's the 3rd point for Barrymore. He's actually...
To be fair, we'll all
I mean,
be
he's
there.
ahead of your guy so far, Matt, because I haven't given your guy any points yet.
Well,
Well,
Stefan,
that's-
you're a,
yes,
you're a
there's no
spooky
doubt.
man.
How does it feel to be coming last?
Stefan,
Fuck you.
Speaky is a spooky man. You've confused many an object for a bat.
He's using the weird
I have. Actually, one of them was a woman, but anyway.
He's using the weird parents
did
of
she
science.
transform into-
Actually, she was a bat.
I don't like this science.
Maybe
Was this
I don't
after
trust
she
it.
took control of a boat on the way to Whitby?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
anyway,
be
so,
there.
so then we have the fact that
adding.
Flynn's cronies dug up Barrymore's corpse and propped him up in his house. I
that
believe
is
Flynn
pretty-
just ran away then, didn't he? He was like...
He ran away screaming.
So
Yeah.
Like a
no points for
little-
Flynn there.
Little bitch.
No points for Barrymore because he was dead, but no points for his mates either because that's just a shit thing to do, really.
Barrymore, to be fair, was quite funny.
He can't even handle a corpse digging up a
He doesn't get points for being dead there, Simon. That's just out of order.
To be fair, Barrymore's dad, his daughter went to visit him. They were like, your father's passed away, I'm so sorry. And he woke up and started strangling her, going, ah!
Oh, no.
Ah.
Anyway, moving on.
That's a
So-
classic Simon line.
I love this. At one point in the film, he was too drunk to stay on his horse.
So he had to be
and that
held.
had to be propped up with the extras.
I love the
crewmen
idea
out
of like
out of shot.
some burly boys holding him on the horse.
He's getting a point for that. Any man who's willing to try and be on a horse when he's
The
that drunk
burly
gets a
boys.
point.
It reminds me of when I was... The weirdest things when I was a fancy boy as a child, when I did pony riding, their mindset was like, well, if the boy falls off, he falls off.
Let
And
the
whenever
boy
he did, they were
fall.
like...
12,000 lovers. 12,000
Never mind.
lovers. He's getting 1 point for that.
What?
He's getting
That's
1 point.
Nonsense. That's
12,000
Because
is obscene.
This is what he's known for, right? So, I mean, he's getting a point for that.
How would
That's
you fit
nonsense. Utter nonsense.
how?
From behind, presumably.
One thing that disturbs me slightly, when his dad walked in with him being with a woman, and his dad's trying to reconcile from being estranged, he says, "Take a seat, Dad, I shan't be long." So
Whilst the
that's
other
just
door
disturbing.
opened,
I'm not giving him a point for that, even though I wrote it down.
Yeah, don't let your dad see that. That's weird.
Okay.
It's like, that brief moment where your dad's like, your new girlfriend, she's nice, and you go, ah, ah! There's a moment of horror.
Yeah. Right, so a woman slapped him so hard that he threw up.
No, that was Betty Davis. She was fantastic.
Now, he was persistent enough to make that happen. I think
little
it
bitch.
almost gets him a point, but it's just too creepy. I'm not giving him a point.
Can
for
I
that.
leave you one? Hollywood always gave him the same leading lady, Olivia de Havilland. And when she first met him, she actually was attracted to him.
I love that
But
sound.
you know how he wasn't emotionally developed?
Yeah.
To show his love for her, he was like 40, and he put a dead snake in her underpants.
Are you just making this up?
No, I'm not.
Okay, he gets a point for that. You can have that.
And I saw an interview from the 70s, which is on YouTube, where she said, if he just said, I want to go out for dinner, I love you, she would have. But he was like, like in primary school when you didn't know why, but you put worms on girls. Like, I got you.
I never did that.
Did not?
I literally never did that. My friends did that. I didn't.
Did Matt do that?
No.
Anyway,
I
it's
just-
almost like I respected women even as a small child.
I used to let the worms
Yeah.
go.
Well, it's not about respect, it's about the worm.
When I was a little one, I used to pick the worms up and put them back on grass so they could be happy. And
Well, that's why you're
But
asexual
you also
now.
used to arrange rocks in size order and put them in your little truck and wheel them across
that's
the
the
garden, didn't
autism
you?
for you
Yeah.
for the win.
No, you
Yeah.
broke the autistic scale, didn't you? Though
He
Oh,
broke
yeah, I
the
did.
autistic scale
I
by...
can't remember how.
they said,
I-
"Well, it sounds like you could be, but also lots of these things you shouldn't be doing, so it doesn't make any sense."
That's why I've got the word abnormal tattooed in my skin in Chinese.
Is this why you
I
you
forgot
had
about that.
too many Hot Wheels vans?
Anyway, chaps,
Sorry.
we're
Away.
getting off topic here. So where were
Hot
we?
topic.
He chased his director up 50 feet, a 50-foot staircase that they'd built on the Robin Hood set, and then hung him off the edge, saying, "Is this real enough for you?" Because he'd been saying the fighting wasn't real enough. He's getting. Hang on, the stairs are quite tall. He dangled him off the edge. He's going to get 2 points for that.
I
Is that
mean,
when they were
in
getting
our
shot
little
by
kinky
arrows?
box time, we found out between us that 10 burpees is too many.
Yeah.
So this monster could charge up the stairs.
Offered to spy an island for Roosevelt in World War II.
Didn't work out.
He
Didn't work out.
didn't do it, but if he'd somehow
didn't
managed
do
to
it.
get sent there, that would have been worth the point.
Can I tell you the sad story?
Points for him.
Go on, very quickly.
John Wayne couldn't get into the army in the war, and he just said like, I want to be a spy man. And apparently General MacArthur just said to him, "All right, fine." They were like in the Philippines, and like, just write down the names of all the boats. And for years after the war, John Wayne was like, I was a spy for the CIA. When they were called the OSS then, he was
I may
the
be-
boats were called the Saucy Sue.
This is
My
a,
mum.
This is a tangent. I do believe that John Wayne met the real Wyatt Earp.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true.
On set of a film that because Wyatt Earp got into Hollywood films and
Ooh,
the two
do
met.
you know-
This is nothing to do
Do you
with
know,
the
I'll
two
circle back the
Christ.
wagons. Do you know who else used to hang out with White Earp?
Genghis Khan.
Okay, Freddy, Big Willy man.
Really?
God.
Speaking of big willies, the next thing on my list, Flynn had a normal-sized penis, according to various women. So
Apparently
no
he was
points
short,
for that.
stubby, and unremarkable.
Minus 17 points.
because he's so known for that, I don't know if he pushed that himself particularly, but he's losing a point for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My theory is that he met OK Freddy.
Decidedly average.
And there were stories of Big Willies coming out of his house. He was like, what if the Big Willie stories were about Flynn?
Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes.
There's no mention, as far as I know, about Hunter S. Thompson's
I don't
dick,
know if
but
he
I
even
didn't
had a
read that
sex
far.
life.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
he did
Was
many
on too
terrible
much
things
coke.
for Warner Brothers, but would not tape up his cock. He's getting a,
I
he's
will
getting a
not
point
tape
back
up
for
my
that.
cock.
He's getting a point back for that. So he must have had some kind of bulge, you know.
Man's got to have standards, I suppose.
It's bizarre though, that's where he drew the line. Like, my
Yeah.
girlfriend's 15, but I will not tape up my cock. Like a
So
drag
he
queen,
also,
but I also had sex
you know
with
what?
her.
This page is
Depraved
almost
motherfucker.
exclusively about the phallic area.
What, Big
Did you
Willie's
get a
like?
little
So-
bit sidetracked, Stefan? Is
so-
there something you're not telling us?
Got friend's dick stabbed with a fork. That's another thing.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So
well,
he had
that's not...
he got his mate to put his dick on a plate full of sausages, and then someone stabbed it.
Did he?
I'm going to give him
do
a
it?
point for being involved in that plan because that's quite funny. He injected
What?
oranges with vodka when he wasn't allowed to drink.
Oh, can I have a bonus
he gets
point?
a point
Oh,
for that.
I've
That's
heard
ingenious.
about that.
You
Yeah.
know, after they found out about the orange... Oh, shit, I've got two. After they found out about the oranges,
Mr. Shouty Man.
yeah, I'm always shouting.
I'm going to give him I'm going to give him 1 point for the injected oranges with vodka and the whole inhaler with vodka and cocaine thing. That together combined.
He
as a
had
point.
bottles of moisturiser that he drank, and it turns out that was just vodka.
Funnily enough, they do that in prison. Yeah.
Wacky story as well. You know Mel Brooks.
Oh yeah.
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks is Jewish?
Yes, he is. In his early days in 1954, he was given a job on television to just keep Errol Flynn sober, just for one show.
I bet he didn't succeed.
Really?
No, he didn't. And that show basically got turned into a film in the 80s called My Favourite Year, and he was played by bloody Peter O'Toole.
They
Fair
managed
enough.
it with
Well, that is a link, that is.
But this is a moment that came from that on this wacky tour when
Oh,
they tried to
shit.
keep Errol Flynn sober. There is a clip that remains, and if you go on YouTube, you can find it. He was on a radio show because he had no money. They said, like, please, they basically said to Errol Flynn, "We got Errol Flynn here. Tell us an amusing story from your childhood." He just turned up back and went, "At the age of 12, I fucked a duck."
How many points?
I'm not giving him a point for that. We're not having points for bestiality.
How many points are given out for links to previous Maddie Spatters?
We're not giving links out for that unless it's related to something cool that your guy did.
It annoys me that Matt has a really fancy tiny glass.
We could use it as a tiebreaker, but...
Tiny glass in which my drink
Anyway,
is.
just to
Probably
finish off...
It's
Hang
just
on.
risky.
Just to finish off scoring for Flynn. So, the next thing I've got, addicted to opium. Well, we already went through the opium dens with the Nazi.
He was too tough for opium.
He drank Africa out of whiskey, allegedly. He's getting a point for that.
That's
They got
1 point.
They got a doctor.
Because I don't think it's fully true, but
Oh,
if people
here's a
believed
story.
he did,
Here's a
that's
story.
point.
Because the French had like wacky medical boards.
Yeah.
They got this one French doctor said, "Well, France says Errol Flynn can have more whiskey," and apparently Errol Flynn gave this doctor prostitutes, and the doctor gave him whiskey.
Dr. Prostitute.
And
My name is Dr. Prostitute.
Prostitute said, "This man's healthy. Give
Right.
him more whiskey."
We're nearly at the end. So he won a hotel in a card game,
I like that.
released an alligator into
What a
the street,
monster.
and crashed a car into a pool. He's getting 2 points for those deeds.
Apparently, to this day in Jamaica, he's known as the Monster.
So if we add that up,
You're a monster.
And there's been a lot
okay,
of
I'm not going to
scary-
tell you how much he's got actually.
That country has scary crime, and they're still scared of
Cover it
Errol
up.
Flynn.
Cover it up.
Just don't look at it. Right. So
Don't look at it.
now we're going to
No.
go through Thomson.
I don't want to see.
What is it? It's exciting.
So for
Take your
Thomson,
glasses off, you spectacle.
let's go with
Well,
what.
oh yeah, I'll take my glass off. That'll help me see better. Yeah, that's how it works, you dickhead.
That's
All right,
the
guys.
whole point.
So Thomson, from the very beginning of your talk on Thomson, in a 4-day period, he managed to destroy 2 cars,
Yep.
crack the wall in a Hilton hotel,
Yep.
bought 2 French horns for £1,100 each.
Yep.
Wow, he was a man.
Dollars.
Dollars,
No,
sorry.
dollars.
Ran through.
More points for that.
Yeah, ran through the glass door in a Turkish restaurant and
Yeah,
Wow,
smashed
that's
it.
terrible. How could
So-
it?
Said Ralph Steadman.
Considering that was in a 4-day period, I'm going to give him 2 points for those deeds.
Yeah. Screw you.
He joined the US Air Force.
Given an early discharge.
Given an early discharge because this man will not follow policy. I think the fact that they said he was talented but also wouldn't follow policy,
They loved him, but he was not.
that
safe
means he's
around
getting a
them.
point. He's
Oh,
getting a
yeah.
point for that. So the fact that he literally inspired the name Gonzo journalism,
Yes, it was coined for him.
that specifically for him, I'm
Viewed
giving
as
him a
one of
point for
these
that.
7 or so types of journalism. There's only so many types of journalism that are recognised, and he inspired.
He is
them.
one of them, yeah. Right. So he bought a mail order doctor.
Yes, he bought
What
one
a hero!
and declared himself Dr. S Thompson.
I'm not going to give him a point for that because I don't see how that benefited him really. But
He did it himself. He was a good guy.
so he asked about the one hand clapping sound, and then he was
Slapped Don Johnson.
he was asked about the one hand clapping sound and
This-
slapped Don
how
Don
Johnson.
Johnson was the most handsome man in Hollywood.
He's getting a point for that because that's hilarious.
Slapped a Hollywood actor around the face.
Oh
Right.
my god.
His father was a World War I veteran. He nailed a boar's.
Instant 3 points for that.
He had religious neighbours who were fanatics, so he nailed a boar's head to their door and put the entrails in their car. He's getting 2 points just for that.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How
when
crazy
he was
do
a
you have to be?
child, essentially, at school.
The trouble is, I don't want to big up Errol Flynn because he did a lot of naughty crimes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You'll notice I didn't mention some of them when scoring him. But
I will say, like, Hunter S. Thompson is like, he inconveniences neighbours. My guy kind of sold people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Therefore he's
This is share the episode up.
So Thompson also dumped a truckload of pumpkins by a hotel. He's getting a point for that. That's hilarious.
Happy shenanigans.
I've just written here, guns, booze, drugs.
Drugs.
Yeah.
That is Hunter S. Thompson.
He was offered the choice between military or prison, chose the military, and was talented but would not be guided
Can
by
I be
policy.
an idiot and celebrate Hunter S. Thompson for one thing?
Go on.
If you read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, he sent this to his employers, the list of all this shit he bought, including a 44 Magnum that he bought on expenses, and he sent it to them. Like, before...
The fact that he put a Magnum on his expenses gets him a point. That's fine.
I think there is a bit in at least the film, where they get this impressionable teenage girl into their hotel room, but all they do with her is feed her acid, I think.
Well, the terrifying thing is that he said to them, like, I forget what the bike was called. It's like this weird motorbike. He says, like, I have to have the Black Phantom. And he bought 2 of them on expenses. So like, I need them to uncover the horror.
Anyway, moving on. So Bill Murray played him in a film. So he called Murray and tried to suggest the sport of shotgun golf.
To be fair,
hits a golf ball and another person shoots it with a shotgun. 2 points for that. That is
hilarious. To be fair, Bill Murray was in Ghostbusters, so he's a family man. So,
yeah, true. So he then tried to demonstrate a magic trick where he dropped Murray into a pool taped to a chair and he nearly drowned it, and it would have done if Thompson hadn't pulled him out. That's a point because that's just crazy.
What was the magic trick?
The magic trick is that he might die.
Just like, here's a magic trick. I tape up this man's mouth and nose and his breathing stops.
What
a bizarre adventure.
It's like a weird link to Tycho Brahe with the drowning.
Almost, yeah.
Just drown mermaids.
Although you can also link Flynn to that, because, he nearly pushed his producer off some stairs, whereas Brahe did with
Therefore,
mooses.
I get extra points for
No. It might be used in the tiebreaker if that happens.
Oh. Where are you going?
I'm trying to sneak off for a wee.
That's alright, you do that and I'll keep scoring.
I'll take the point.
So
Johnny Depp
played him and became his friend, it would seem.
Can you pretend him about and just go, every now and again?
Yeah, sure.
Bearing in mind a man who didn't really trust anyone.
Let's get through the scores while Simon's gone.
What are you doing, you cunt? You cheated.
So, took umbrage with hippies. He took umbrage with hippies. He's getting a point just for that.
I like him for that, though.
The fact it was counterculture, but he also didn't trust hippies.
Wrote articles about the Hells Angels. Lived with them. They nearly killed him, and he wrote a book about them that was actually quite successful. I think, considering if you take that into account, and also the fact that he saw one of them beating his wife and dog, and he tried to stop him, that's a very dangerous situation.
Yep. But he still stood for his beliefs.
I'm going to give him 3 points for all of those things.
Yeah. Unlike the weird Tasmanian devil.
Yeah.
Terrible bloody bloke, you threw a woman down.
So of course, he then bought a compound. If you live in a compound, you've got to be a certain kind of crazy. And he shot at his neighbour on the ranch next door. Shot at his mansion.
Unloaded 3 guns worth of ammunition.
Unloaded 3 guns and then claimed he was shooting at a porcupine and destroyed his guns.
A man who kept tigers on his property, none less.
The guy had Bengal tigers or something, didn't he?
No less.
Like, if a man has to buy Bengal tigers to keep you away, and you go and shoot at his mansion and claim you're shooting at a porcupine, that's another 2 points.
And he had the guns melted down as well.
Smart man. He ran for sheriff. Narrowly lost. Now, the fact that it was a close run thing is quite impressive, considering his policies were legalise recreational drugs, a height ban on buildings, and rename Aspen to Fat City, was it?
Yep.
And
also repaving all the roads with just grass sod.
I'm going to give him 2 points for those.
Here's Simon, who's been here the whole time.
I don't really want to encourage our flames to badly.
Therefore, should be written off.
Fine,
and
my guy should win.
So then,
my guy winning.
So then, in '76, he reported on Vietnam, but they just left him there. They pulled the story, and he had to make his way back. So
can I have a bad story?
Go on.
Errol Flynn wanted to be a war reporter. His son Sean Flynn actually was very good. He went missing in Cambodia.
Oh no! Did they ever find him?
He went to during the Cambodian genocide. Journalists were told, "Don't go there."
So he went there.
And he went there.
I have some respect for that.
He later reappeared and turned out to be Margaret Thatcher.
It's like bald and bankrupt.
Well, no, apparently, yeah, bald and bankrupt will go missing one day.
Right. Anyway, we'll carry on.
Anyway, can I do this one thing for a second?
He just pulled his belt out.
He just whipped his
like
belt.
the cast
What the hell
of
is
the
going
film
on?
The Full Monty.
Let's score
I
this
was
quickly and get
practicing
out of
taking
here.
my belt off and I enjoyed it.
This is like
This
the time
is
I
the
was.
longest adjudication
Ah!
session.
This is like the time I was chased out of my friend's house while he was impersonating Alan Rickman.
Stop
You're the
whipping
only
things.
Cossack I know who's bothered by whipping.
You're obsessed with slavery, you are.
No,
Right.
I'm not. Well, my people were subjected to it. How dare you?
So then
Minorly true, actually.
he
I'm part Ghanaian, you monster.
he travelled to the Nevada desert to report on a motorbike race.
Ah.
Instead, he just wrote a substance-soaked article on his alter ego, Raoul Duke.
Can I mean,
that gets a point,
I want to win.
especially
but
because they published that eventually.
I
didn't
want
they?
to win, but I want to add one thing.
Hang on a minute. Let me do a bit more. So, what was it?
end.
A bear appeared at his assistant's lodge. So he tried.
Appeared.
No bear. A
No bear, no! Bad bear!
A bear there was. A bear.
No! Rah.
So he tried to do the decent
Wait.
thing.
Was it big and brown covered in there?
It was. And he tried to
Okay.
shoot near the bear to scare it, but instead ricocheted and hit his assistant.
Yeah, he fired in her direction,
So he's-
aiming to miss.
He's getting a point for trying to help, but
Also hit her in the leg and arm.
yeah, that at least she survived. He can
Can
contribute to
can
his
I
point.
fuck up my own story by saying one thing in favour of Hunter S. Thompson?
Ooh, yes,
When he
please.
wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, one thing that I admire is that when he started the story, he wrote all this stuff like, I bought a sports bike and all these drugs and all these guns, and then he sent it to his employers.
Oh.
And they just went, okay, Hunter. Yeah.
Don't take drugs,
Okay,
kids.
so my favourite bit.
You hear me?
When he was meeting Johnny Depp, he shoved his way into a pub armed with a cattle prod.
And a
That's
taser.
really naughty.
And a taser.
And the fact that Johnny Depp just saw sparks coming through the door
Yeah.
and was
On
still
my
willing
way,
to
you
pay for
bastard.
his funeral in the end, which we'll get onto later. That gets him a
$5 million.
point. That gets him a point. He was nearly killed because either he or Depp, I can't remember, lit up a cigar next to some dynamite that he had in his house.
That was dead.
Johnny Depp.
Okay, so he's getting a point for
I
having
will say,
dynamite.
Johnny
one thing
Depp-
in favour of
Johnny-
Errol Flynn.
Johnny Depp wasn't told about the stack of dynamite that was in Hunter S. Thompson's
I will
basement
say-
where he was staying.
Errol Flynn captured people who had no idea what was going on and made them work in a diamond mine, but he never subjected them to dynamite.
Hunter S.
Yeah.
Thompson also shaved Johnny Depp's head to look like
Yeah,
his
that's
own.
weird.
He did actually. Oh.
I thought Johnny Depp was the guy who decided that, but it was actually Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson was just like, I'll show her head.
Oh dear. Right, so what else did he do? He smuggled an elephant out tusk by tusk when he was supposed to be watching the best boxing event in the world at the time.
Oh yeah, he got bored and chucked a pound and a half of marijuana in his hotel pool.
Yeah, he did actually.
Can we talk about Muhammad Ali?
So he's going to get a point for those.
Searching for
He's going to get a point
pygmies
for
in the
those.
forest.
I think next episode we should do Muhammad Ali because he was quite silly.
We can do. So anyway, point for that
Great.
because it's quite crazy going on safari when the boxing's happening and you've got
The
one of the most
greatest
expensive
event
tickets.
in sports.
The big
history.
deal.
Yeah.
Like back in the day when people weren't aware of his mean, lean, fat reducing machine.
Wait,
like
no.
he actually was a hero.
He's so proud of it, he put his name on it.
We've said a lot about his routine, but we've already gone over the drug abuse a hell of a lot, and it's an impressively bad routine.
Did he do drugs?
I
Oh no, got off him now.
like the bit where it says at the end, midnight, ready to write after all of the drugs he's had in the day.
Yep.
But we've gone over the drugs a hell of
It
a
makes me feel a lot better about my dissertation writing style, which was like,
What about the orange
I
juice?
got to put the part-baked French bread in the oven and have a chorizo sandwich, then I'll have a go.
I'll melt a brie in a lump of sourdough and make a brie.
I'm a monster!
So, what else did he do? He wanted Nixon's coffin launched into the sewer outlet.
Did that work out?
He hated Nixon.
Was that when I was having a
he
As
poo?
made-
funny as that is, he didn't make it happen, so I'm not giving him a
Apparently,
point for that, but it's really funny.
He made a lot of fun of Richard Nixon for having lost a leg to gangrene. I didn't know that.
I'm not aware of that. I don't know if that's true.
He kept slinging insults at him for being missing one leg and was claiming,
I
was he
don't know if
hoping
it's
to
true.
re-break the record that he never did in his earlier track days of running the 3-minute mile or
Can
something?
we edit this later?
Hang on. So there's a lot more stuff about what happened when he shot himself in the dead and how he was fired out of a
Shot
cannon
himself
after
in the dead?
In the dead.
in the
How
head.
do you shoot yourself in the dead?
He shot himself
That's
in
the
the
best way
head,
to shoot yourself.
and after he died, he was fired out of a cannon. And
Stefan, how are you going to shoot yourself in the dead?
all of that is very cool.
In the head.
The last thing that he actually did that I'm going to give him a point for is that he swam in a tropical storm and somehow survived until 9 a.m. to
The
reach.
next morning, when he set out that evening to
And
go
then,
for
and then a
swim
big,
and then
a big
into-
bloody monsoon just happened to appear, and then he's like, "Well, I'm just going to tread water till the morning." I guess. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to give him 2 points
Can
for
I?
that.
It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
weird thing. I don't want Flynn to win because he was wrong, but 1 point. Thomson took himself out. Flynn was clinging onto life by his fingernails. He was like, "I've got my new teenage bride. I've got to sell my boat. I'm sad,
Yeah,
but
but-
I'll see it through."
Thompson left some of his best cryptic work behind when he did that act. So
And there's a new act, a hot
No,
new
we-
act called Christopher Lee. I'm going to break his hands. He'll love me for it.
one hand, one finger.
Now, gentlemen, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think it was going to end up like this, but the score's tied so far.
Oh, fuck's sake.
So we've got 17 points each, and we can either call it another time. We've had a couple of those already, or we can have a tiebreak. So for the first part of the tiebreaker, I want you both to do an impression of your man.
I can't do that. I don't.
Ooh.
Okay, I'll do an impression of him.
Go on.
I've said this earlier this episode. He had no money. He was brought back on American radio. Said, "Errol Flynn, please say something." Said, "Say an amusing story about your child." He said, "I must confess, as a 12-year-old boy, I fucked a duck."
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. That's good. Have you got an
Matt's
impression
on his phone,
for Mr. Thompson?
Yeah.
looking at bad women who will ruin his life. He's swiping. He's swiping like he's got a choice.
Okay.
Oh, what's he
They're
doing?
both quite insane blokes, really, and I'm surprised it's come to a tie, really.
How dare you?
Try this. There are times, however, and this is one of them, when even being right feels wrong. What do you say, for instance, about a generation that has been taught that rain is poison and sex is death? If making love might be fatal, and if a cool spring breeze on any summer afternoon can turn a crystal blue lake into a puddle of black poison right in front of your eyes, there is not much left except TV and relentless masturbation. It's a strange world. Some people get rich, and others eat shit and die.
That's beautiful.
Very
but
good, very
it's
good.
not very funny though.
Very good.
So
Fuck you, you're not very
Okay.
I'll smash you in the head with a love piston. I don't
Now,
know. what
so
that
What's
is.
a love
Who
piston?
knows? Who knows?
Is
I'm
it
gonna
your
say-
Willy? Because I've been yearning for that for so
No,
long.
it's an actual mechanical device I've invented.
Oh,
right here.
Okay, there we are.
I think, having heard your cases for both individuals,
Was it my bad man?
and
He's
I've,
bad man.
I've read through the list.
Not the bad man, not the Tasmanian rapist.
I've read through the list, and I've
He was
decided.
bad.
He was terrible.
I've decided that because out of the things that I've thought relevant and made notes of, Flynn has managed to get more points on the
Whee!
scoreboard out of less points that I've bullet pointed.
Oh, you monster.
I think he's
Oh,
earned
your
a higher
point-
rating through less facts in a way,
I
and
feel
Matt's
like
segment was longer,
Point system was sketchy at
a
best.
tiny bit, yeah.
You had a man who tried to transform society.
So by-
How dare you?
I'm going to say by about 3%, it's a victory to Flynn.
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Really?
The
I
monster.
cannot believe it. What? Oh,
The
God.
trouble with that is, I'm not allowed to celebrate because he was a monster.
So
How
we're-
did the-
so we're gonna
how
give
did
him
the
one
how
final
did
point.
the tiebreaker work then?
Do you know what he said to his second wife?
The tiebreaker was another tie.
Do,
so
do you
I,
know what
I
the
made my
winner
own
of this
tiebreaker.
week's
No.
episode said
No.
to his wife in the courthouse? You know,
Oh
she was
my-
working in the courthouse.
What did she say?
1942, Errol Flynn said, "Hello, I'm on trial for statutory rape. I'm innocent, of course. How old are you?" And
Minus,
she was 18.
I kind of regret giving him the win now. but
minus
we'll roll with it.
17 points. I claim the victory.
Anyway, don't be Errol Flynn. He was real naughty. He was.
Yeah.
He was
Not
quite.
a good guy. I cannot believe it. There's no justice.
So the final score, as it
Bankers
stands-
are twats. There's no Easter Bunny.
All
There's
right,
no
calm
Santa
down,
Claus.
sir.
Whoa! I'm not having this.
Right.
You brought Robin Hood into dispute. Now you're bringing up an Easter Bunny. I'm not having it.
Right,
Charles
guys.
Bronson wasn't his real name.
Guys,
Nah,
to close
no.
this episode, I'm just going to read you out the final scores. So we have 18 points for Flynn, 17 points for Thompson, 3 for Mr. Barrymore, 1 for Herman, the Austrian Nazi
Big
doctor,
Barrymore.
and then 1 for me,
One hero.
which I can't remember how I got there actually. Was that
I
for a
claim
pun?
that one, at least.
So I tied with Herman, the Austrian Nazi. That's quite impressive.
That's quite troubling.
and
Don't tell your employer.
And I think that is a good note to end on. So this is us signing off from History's
I
Maddest
claim
Bastard.
this as a moral victory.
I
Well,
think
yeah, my man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a low bar. Like,
your
how
man
can
was
I meet?
definitely
How can
slightly
I?
more moral.
How can I beat this man on a moral level who took advantage of underage girls? How about I don't take advantage of underage girls?
I do not
win.
support any of this. Neither do any of us, really. But
He was a
What
bad
can you
man,
do?
but he was quite amusing.
And with that, we're signing off. And
The
we
end.
hope you enjoyed season 2, episode 1.
bastards!
Very good.